Chapter 1382. Unrivaled and lonely. Yi Fei, you demon. You'll die a horrible death. The quasi-emperors of the Divine Martial Sacred Academy won't let you off. Lu Feng and the others were fuming with anger. However, the emperors of the Divine Martial Sacred Academy weren't weak either. The emperors of the Divine Martial Sacred Academy immediately sealed their cultivations and captured them. Lu Qing's expression changed when she saw this. However, she didn't run away impulsively. Instead, she stared coldly at Yi Fei, lightning flickering in her eyes. "I'll remember what happened today." Lu Qing's voice was filled with killing intent. After all, she had gone from being a goddess to a maid. Even a peerless genius wouldn't be able to remain calm. Yi Fei was even more depressed. This had been planned by the quasi-emperors, but Lu Qing had only targeted him. At first, Yi Fei had felt pity for Lu Qing being reduced to a maid. Now he was angry. He just wanted to crush this goddess arrogance. Thus, he coughed on purpose and said, "Cough, cough. My throat is a little dry. You, hurry up and go to my mountain peak and bring me a pot of tea." "You want me to bring you a cup of tea?" No matter how calm Lu Qing was, she was infuriated when she heard this order. Xia Jun, Lin Tianjiao, and the others were so frightened that they quickly retreated. They were afraid that the goddess would explode and fight with Yi Fei again. Only Shangluo was walking with Yi Fei, calmly eating melons. However, when he saw that Yi Fei actually wanted a peerless genius to bring him a cup of tea, a strange expression appeared on Shangluo's face. "Qing'er, bring me a pot of tea too. Also, bring some desserts for dessert." Shangluo was mischievous. He actually ordered Lu Qing around like a maid. Lu Qing was so angry that her lungs were about to explode. Her eyes turned into two terrifying bolts of lightning as she stared coldly at Shangluo. Shangluo blinked innocently. "Yi Fei, your maid is a little disobedient. You have to be careful when you serve me tonight. Serve him in bed." Yi Fei was stunned when he heard this. What's so strange about that? In the aristocratic families, many maids serve him in bed. As Shangluo spoke, he looked very seriously at Yi Fei's face. Yi Fei's expression turned serious as he reprimanded Shangluo sternly. "Nonsense! A maid is a maid. Her job is to serve tea and water. At most, she will make the bed and warm the bed. I am an upright person." Shangluo stared at him for a long time, but didn't see anything wrong. He nodded and said seriously, "Yes, I believe you are a gentleman. Then at night, let Qing sleep with this fairy. It just so happens that I need a servant girl to coax me to sleep." Yi Fei suddenly felt a pang of regret. He suddenly realized that Shangluo had deliberately set a trap so that he could take Lu Qing away. But since he had already set it, he couldn't take it back. He could only watch as his maid inexplicably became a maid shared by him and Shangluo. Lu Qing was actually very grateful to Shangluo. Shangluo's words made Lu Qing look at Yi Fei even more fiercely. Yi Fei felt like vomiting blood. He was very depressed to find that he didn't find a maid, but a punishment. Out of sight, out of mind. He returned to his cave abode and continued to cultivate. At the same time as Yi Fei was cultivating, the news of him defeating goddess Lu Qing spread throughout the three sacred academies, as well as the upper echelons of many empires in Zhongzhou. This was naturally Shi Yingqing's doing. The true martial sacred academy had been declining for hundreds of years. It finally had a chance to rise again. Such news would definitely be spread widely. What? Goddess Lu Qing was defeated by a person abandoned by the heavens? Is this news true or false? How could it be false? This was personally spread by the disciples of the true martial sacred academy. I heard that the previous heavenly emperor of the sacred academy was completely annihilated. Like the goddess, they were all reduced to prisoners of the true martial sacred academy. Oh my God, the sacred academy is now the first sacred academy. It's like the sun in the sky. I didn't expect it to be inferior to a declining true martial sacred academy. Of course, the true martial sacred academy is the only sacred academy founded by a martial god. Just in terms of innate talent, it surpasses the other sacred academies by a large margin. Its foundation is incomparably deep The news quickly spread to the ears of the upper echelons of the Sacred Academy. Hearing this news, Lu Rulong felt as if he had been struck by lightning. His entire body turned cold. The other quasi-emperors of the Sacred Academy were also furious. They roared together, wanting to join forces with the three Sacred Academies to destroy the true martial Sacred Academy. But strangely, the Heavenly Tao Sacred Academy and the Heavenly Policy Sacred Academy suddenly fell silent. The deep foundation of the Sacred Academy also had no intention of speaking. This confused the quasi-emperors who were clamoring for revenge. What does the old ancestor mean by this? Is he going to let our Heavenly Emperor and Goddess be detained and humiliate the Sacred Academy? Why are you in such a hurry? Don't forget Lu Qing's identity. The old ancestor isn't in a hurry. He's waiting for the Tian Fa quasi-emperor to express his stance. A rational quasi-emperor analyzed. The expressions of the other quasi-emperors changed. Clearly, they were filled with fear of the Tian Fa quasi-emperor. After all, the Tian Fa quasi-emperor had an immemorial heavenly technique. And the immemorial heavenly technique was the key to breaking through to the martial god realm. If it weren't for the decline of the martial Tao, the Tian Fa quasi-emperor's potential was definitely the most promising person to break through to the martial emperor realm. Even the three deans of the true martial Sacred Academy were wary of the Tian Fa quasi-emperor. Otherwise, with Lu Qing's identity as the traitor's granddaughter and the fact that she had come to provoke the Sacred Academy, Shi Yingqing wouldn't have just made her a servant. Quick, send this news to the Lu clan immediately. A quasi-emperor came to his senses and immediately thought of a way to deal with this. There's no need. The clan head already knows. He told everyone to calm down. He will personally deal with this matter. At this moment, another member of the Lu clan walked in from the void and explained to the quasi-emperors. At this moment, about 10 days had passed since Yi Fei defeated Lu Qing. During these 10 days, Lu Qing's performance had been very calm. It was just that Yi Fei asked her to serve tea and water every day. She even made the bed and folded the quilt very seriously and carefully. Yi Fei also increasingly felt the terror of this goddess. She can still remain calm after such humiliation. She will definitely be a great enemy in the future. He was somewhat worried. Shang Luan nibbled on a spirit melon and glanced at Yi Fei. There are two ways. Either kill her or destroy her. That way, you have nothing to worry about. Kill her? Destroy her? Yi Fei was slightly taken aback. It wasn't that he hadn't thought of this before. The best way to deal with a peerless genius was to kill her in advance before she rose to prominence. However, Yi Fei quickly shook his head. He recalled his encounter with Di Fan in the ancestral dragon abyss. Back then, Di Fan only needed one hand to kill me, but he didn't do so. He clearly knew that I was walking on a path of despair and was the greatest threat to these peerless geniuses, but he still didn't make a move. He even said that he would give me time to grow and catch up to him. Chapter 1383. Grand Dean, you're not going to take the opportunity to kill me? The next day, Lu Qing brought tea over and looked at Yi Fei strangely. Yi Fei was stunned. He didn't expect Shanghua to tell Lu Qing this. What do you guys talk about at night? Yi Fei was suddenly curious. That's not something you should know. Lu Qing glared at him. Her eyes were like the mother of lightning, giving off an immense pressure. Yi Fei shook his head helplessly. I finally understand why you're called a goddess. It's not because you're too powerful, but because you don't know the ways of the world. Do you know why a peerless genius like you can't compare to a cripple like me? Are you really a person abandoned by the heavens? Lu Qing was shocked. She always thought that Yi Fei was a peerless genius like her, which was why he could defeat her. Now, it seemed like he wasn't. Yi Fei shook his head. Who told you that I'm a peerless genius? In fact, I'm just an ordinary person. Many things that you think you're born to have, I have to work 100 times or 1,000 times harder to get them. Judging a person's strength isn't based on whether he has a special bloodline or is a peerless genius. It's more about his hard work, his pursuit, his determination, and perseverance. I didn't kill you because I'm confident. I have enough determination to catch up to peerless geniuses like you. I have enough determination to surpass peerless geniuses like you. Peerless geniuses like you are the whetstones for me to pursue the peak of martial arts. The stronger you are, the sharper my blade will be. Yi Fei stood up and drank the tea that Lu Qing brought over. He frowned and reprimanded her. Old tea is too bitter. Give me a new cup of tea. Okay, Lu Qing responded. She even subconsciously performed the maid etiquette that Shangluo had taught her over the past few days. She took the tea and was about to leave. Yi Fei looked at her in surprise. Lu Qing also glared fiercely at Yi Fei with a flushed face. She had been tricked by Yi Fei's words just now and had unknowingly assumed the role of a maid. Just based on this point alone, Lu Qing absolutely could not forgive this shameless person in front of her. Yi Fei was also prepared for Lu Qing to flip out at any time. But Lu Qing didn't do anything. In the sky, he saw that his precious granddaughter had been reduced to a maid and was ordered around. The Tianfa quasi-emperor was so angry that his hair stood on end. Brat, you dare? Boom! Silently, the small world of the true martial sacred courtyard was collapsing rapidly. It was a huge lightning palm that was comparable to the sky and the earth. It pierced through the void and mercilessly enveloped Yi Fei. This gigantic palm of thunder was much more terrifying than the one that Lu Qing executed. Not to mention Yi Fei, even an absolute genius would be pulverized by it. However, Yi Fei did not cower. Instead, he held his head high and puffed out his chest as he looked at the sky. The Tianfa quasi-emperor actually sneaked into the true martial sacred courtyard and attacked a junior like me. Are you not ashamed at all? Give me 10 years. Not to mention a quasi-emperor. I will even surpass a martial emperor. Boom! A strong conviction appeared on Yi Fei's body. That was the conviction of being undefeatable. Like a boulder, it made Yi Fei's figure grow taller. I am undefeatable. Yi Fei made his move. Even when facing a quasi-emperor, he did not back down at all. He sent out the 8 extreme heavenly dragons and clashed head-on with this horrifying gigantic palm. The strength of the immemorial heavenly cultivation technique instantly blocked the descending gigantic palm of thunder in midair. Then, an aged, angry roar suddenly came from the sky of the sacred courtyard. Similarly, a large hand slapped out, forming an azure dragon covered in scales. That azure dragon was so huge that its body could not be seen. It seemed to occupy the entire sky. As the dragon claw descended, it suddenly tore the gigantic palm of thunder into pieces. So, is the Supreme Headmaster. Unexpectedly, the Supreme Headmaster's combat prowess is still so astonishing. This junior is impressed. A figure formed by lightning appeared in the sky. That was not the Tianfa quasi-emperor, but a clone. However, even a clone was more horrifying than many strong quasi-emperors. As the Tianfa quasi-emperor spoke, he suddenly sent out another palm strike toward the sky, trying to force the azure dragon out of the sky. Tianfa, as long as this old man is alive, it is not up to you to act impudently in my true martial sacred courtyard. An aged, angry roar came from the sky. The azure dragon turned into a spear, forming a mountain-sized azure dragon spear that pierced forward. Everywhere it passed, heaven and earth shook violently. The Tianfa quasi-emperor's gigantic palm of thunder suffered another destructive blow. The thunderous figure also staggered back a few steps. Grandfather. Lu Qing stepped forward somewhat anxiously. Qing'er, don't worry. Even if grandfather cannot save you, I will definitely redeem you. Just these old fogies of the true martial sacred courtyard will not be able to do anything to this emperor. The Tianfa quasi-emperor's bold voice came from the thunderous figure. This emperor? Yi Fei glanced sideways. Just from this form of address, it was clear how ambitious the Tianfa quasi-emperor was. This person actually wanted to become a true martial emperor. Where do you think you are going? Since you are already here, then leave your clone behind. The Supreme Headmaster said a lot in one breath. He actually panted slightly, like an old man past his prime. However, the Supreme Headmaster's strength was still horrifying. Suddenly, a sharp astral wind appeared in the shattered sky. The divine spear turned into a dragon and pierced that thunderous figure into pieces before the Tianfa, Quasi-Emperor's clone, could escape. Qing'er, wait for grandfather. Brat, if you dare to touch a single strand of Qing'er's hair, this emperor will make you suffer a fate worse than death. The thunderous figure warned before it shattered. If you harbor evil intentions, even if your talent is astonishing, you can forget about breaking through to martial emperor. The Supreme Headmaster's voice gradually faded away in the air, as if it had never appeared. Even the clash between the two quasi-emperors did not attract the attention of the other people of the true martial sacred courtyard. This showed how horrifying the strength of these two were. Qing'er, was your grandfather threatening me earlier? Yi Fei rubbed his chin and looked at Lu Qing, who was beside him, somewhat unhappily. The Tianfa quasi-emperor did not seem to take him seriously at all. If you call me that again, I will poison the tea and poison you to death. Lu Qing showed an angry expression, looking like she would go berserk and kill someone at any moment. If you're not even qualified to serve tea, then you are a failure as a maidservant. It looks like you have nothing to do aside from sleeping with me. Yi Fei smiled coldly. Since the Tianfa quasi-emperor threatened him, he would threaten Lu Qing. He knew how to bully the weak as well. Lu Qing panted angrily. She did her best to endure the urge to grind Yi Fei's bones to dust. Just at this moment, Xia Jun seemed to have eavesdropped on the conversation between the two. He reacted in shock and said, "What? Big brother actually wants Lu Qing to sleep with him? In that case, I will have to call her sister-in-law in the future." Boom! Before Xia Jun could finish speaking, a bolt of heavenly lightning suddenly struck him, charring him on the outside and causing him to fall to the ground. His body spasmed, foaming at the mouth. He was already half-cooked from the electricity. Chapter 1384. Follower. Why am I always the one getting hurt? Xia Jun's voice was filled with resentment as he was carried down the mountain by Lin Tianjiao and the little fatty. After striking the great Xia army with lightning, Lu Qing finally vented the anger in his heart. At this moment, she had completely regained her composure. She looked at Yi Fei seriously. The reason why you have the confidence to surpass us is because you have not tasted the bitter fruit of failure. Your invincible belief has affected your self-confidence. When you fail once, your invincible belief will be shattered and you will never be able to pull yourself together again. What is a peerless genius? Lu Qing suddenly asked, but before Yi Fei could answer, she had already explained, a peerless genius is not only because we have high aptitude and talent, but also because no matter how many times we fail, we can quickly get back on our feet. But you are different. Once your invincible belief is shattered, you will suffer a crushing defeat and will never have the chance to rise again, even if you defeat me. Your strength is still very weak. Yi Fei looked at Lu Qing with amusement and shook his head. Qing'er, I know you want to defeat me, but don't forget that you're still my maidservant. What you need to do now is to brew good tea, pour good water, and serve this young master well. Yi Fei you. Lu Qing was so angry that she could not speak. This kind of verbal confrontation was originally a very serious and dangerous matter. If she was not careful, she would fall into the opponent's mindset. Her martial will would be shaken, and she would lose her drive to improve. But Yi Fei called her Qing'er so that Lu Qing could not vent her anger. She could not throw a tantrum. After all, she was still Yi Fei's maidservant now. All Lu Qing could do was glare fiercely at Yi Fei. Then she took the teapot and ran out angrily to boil water and brew tea again. If there was a chance, she really wanted to add some laxatives to the tea. However, Yi Fei was very shrewd. Every time he drank tea, he would let Lu Qing drink it first. After confirming that there was no problem, he would slowly taste it. This made it impossible for Lu Qing to find an opportunity even if he wanted to play dirty. However, Lu Qing is right. No matter how many times a peerless genius fails, as long as their talent remains, they will have countless opportunities to make a comeback. However, I am different. I only have one chance. On the path of despair, there is no turning back. If we take a step forward, we'll be known as the Saint Ancestor. If we take a step back, we'll be consigned to eternal damnation. Seeing Lu Qing's departing figure, the smile on Yi Fei's face disappeared. Then it became serious, and finally, it became incomparably resolute. Since I've walked on this path of despair, I've never regretted it. I can't compare to these supreme geniuses, and they can't compare to me because they don't have the courage like me to cut off all paths of retreat and embark on this path of despair. Seeing that the quasi-emperor of Tian Fa had been defeated, Yi Fei planned to go into seclusion to cultivate another immemorial heavenly art, the 4 phases of true martial. This was the inherited martial technique of divine Emperor Zhenwu. Although it was not a complete immemorial heavenly art, it would still be at least 10 times stronger than other martial emperors' ultimate techniques. However, before I officially start cultivating, there is something I need to deal with. Yi Fei thought of the true martial divine hall. In the past, the true martial divine hall was sealed off. Only martial monarchs could enter to cultivate. Furthermore, each person only had 3 chances to enter. After the 3rd time, even a quasi-emperor would not be able to enter. However, it was different now. Since Yi Fei had inherited divine Emperor Zhenwu's inheritance, the divine hall that protected the inheritance was no longer as important. The consequence of this was that anyone could enter and cultivate. Now, the upper echelon of the sacred court had already started discussing the matter of arranging the disciples to enter the divine hall in batches to cultivate. I have to take advantage of the fact that no one goes in and use up the remaining 100 or so Tao enlightenment opportunities from the Tao enlightenment stone. Otherwise, if there are too many people, the large green stone will not be able to hide. If it gets caught or escapes, it will definitely renege on its debt. Hence, after sending Lu Qing away, Yi Fei went to find Xia Jun and the others and told them about the true martial divine hall and the ability to comprehend the Tao. What? As long as we enter the divine hall, we can comprehend the Tao. Is that true? Xia Jun and Lin Tianjiao were shocked. Yi Fei, tell me honestly, is there any treasure in the divine hall that can allow one to comprehend the Tao? Shang Luo was indeed the first miss of the Merchant Alliance. Her senses were so sharp that even Yi Fei felt fear. Yi Fei made up his mind that he could not let Shang Luo know about the large green stone. Otherwise, this first miss would definitely tear down the divine hall. Yi Fei could only say vaguely, "It's not a treasure. It's a reward from the divine emperor's inheritance. It's gone once it's used up." Really? Shang Luo's face was still full of suspicion. She leaned over and stared unblinkingly at Yi Fei. Even Yi Fei could smell the fragrance coming from Shang Luo's body. He could only cough dryly and declare once again, "I'm an upright person. What does being upright have to do with whether there are treasures inside?" Shang Luo was still very suspicious, but she still reluctantly moved away from Yi Fei. Yi Fei was instantly depressed. He had almost given himself away by Shang Luo's interrogation. Fortunately, he had managed to muddle through. Shang Luo had already rushed back to her room to pack her things and prepare to enter the divine hall to comprehend the Tao. Of course, before she left, Shang Luo actually called Lu Qing along. This made Yi Fei even more depressed. Lu Qing was already a peerless genius. If he could comprehend the Tao again, it would be unimaginable. It seems that I also have to work hard. Yi Fei secretly felt a trace of pressure. Therefore, after leaving the matter of comprehending the Tao to Xia Jun and the others, he returned to the cave residence and began to cultivate in seclusion. He wanted to succeed in cultivating the 4 symbols of Zhenwu, the Divine Emperor's unique skill, as soon as possible. After a night of discussion, Xia Jun and Lin Tianjiao finally selected a total of 100 disciples, including Guowang. They believed that the disciples of the Sacred Academy were reliable and had a strong sense of loyalty to the Sacred Academy. They would enter the Sacred Hall of True Martial Arts and cultivate together. It was worth mentioning that these selected disciples were all encouraged by the battle between Yi Fei and Lu Qing and volunteered to become the Holy Sun's followers. The opportunity to comprehend the Tao was also the best opportunity to win people's hearts. At Guowang's suggestion, Yi Fei also agreed to let these followers have the opportunity to comprehend the Tao. It was also a disguised form of repayment to the Sacred Academy. However, Yi Fei also made it clear to Guowang that, except for Gong Ji and the other followers who had already joined, he did not want any other followers in the future. Firstly, it was troublesome to manage. Secondly, it was useless to have too many followers. 10 wolves are not as good as one tiger. Compared to relying on other people's strength, I believe in my own strength more. Let's start cultivating the 4 symbols of Zhenwu now. Slowly closing his eyes, Yi Fei immersed himself in cultivation. Countless mysterious information appeared in his mind. This information was the inheritance of divine Emperor Zhenwu. At this time, it all turned into strange runes from Yi Fei's mind into his soul. Yi Fei suddenly felt as if he had comprehended the 4 symbols of Zhenwu for countless years. He understood every change clearly. What he needed to do was to continue cultivating and turning these runes into real power. This was also a huge benefit of the inheritance. Chapter 1385. Gathering veins into a river rumble. Yi Fei immersed himself in his cultivation. Day after day passed by, and it did not take long for 1 month's time to be up. Yi Fei reluctantly stopped his cultivation session. Today, Lu Qing had been a maid for a month. At this time, if the Tian Fa Quasi-Emperor did not come to redeem her, even if he did not make things difficult for Lu Qing, the Quasi-Emperors of the Sacred Institute would not tolerate it. After all, the grudge between the true martial Sacred Institute and the Tian Fa Quasi-Emperor was too deep. The decline of the Sacred Institute was caused by the Tian Fa Quasi-Emperor. Qing, it seems that your grandfather does not value you. It has been a month, but he still has no intention of redeeming you. Yi Fei walked out of the cave and happened to see Lu Qing returning from the true martial sacred hall, so he greeted him. Lu Qing choked in his heart when he heard the way Yi Fei addressed him. In the end, he resisted the urge to attack at this time. However, countless lightning appeared on his body, scaring Xia Jun, Lin Tianjiao, and the others. They quickly retreated far away for fear of being affected. Fortunately, Yi Fei and Lu Qing did not fight. Loud sounds came from outside the small world. Then, the small world broke open and countless mountains rushed in. There was a martial monarch under each mountain, carrying the mountain and moving in the sky. 50 martial monarchs and 50 spirit veins. These are all martial monarchs of the Lu clan? Yi Fei frowned. If you remember correctly, the Tian Fa Quasi-Emperor's Lu clan had only become a Quasi-Emperor family in the last few hundred years. To be able to gather 50 martial monarchs and 50 spirit veins in a few hundred years, this power was simply terrifying. That's right. This is the strength of my Lu clan. These spirit veins were all brought out by my grandfather from the Heavenly Thunder Sacred Sect. Lu Qing's face was full of pride. The Heavenly Thunder Sacred Sect was the sect where divine Emperor Zhenwu had once cultivated. There, he created the martial Emperor Dao, the heavenly punishment. However, for some reason, divine Emperor Zhenwu left the Heavenly Thunder Sacred Sect and created the true martial chapter, becoming a martial god in one fell swoop. Back then, the heavenly punishment Quasi-Emperor had used some unknown method to obtain the inheritance of the Heavenly Thunder Holy Sect. He had completely grasped the heavenly punishment immemorial heavenly technique and become one of the strongest Quasi-Emperors in the Tianwu continent. As Yi Fei was thinking about this, a middle-aged man in embroidered robes stepped out from the group of 50 martial emperors who were carrying mountains on their backs. His gaze pierced through countless mountain peaks and finally landed on the mountain peak that Yi Fei was on. Lu Qing, are you all right? The middle-aged man's eyes were filled with anxiety. 50 spiritual veins were nothing in the ancient era. However, in this era where resources were scarce and the martial path was declining, 50 spiritual veins were more valuable than 50 martial monarchs. Even the Liu clan struggled for a long time to take out this batch of spirit veins, feeling the pinch. However, under the insistence of the heavenly punishment quasi-emperor and Lu Qing's identity as an absolute genius, the Liu clan managed to endure the pain and move over these 50 spirit veins, along with the mountain peak above them. Yifei also saw many buildings above. These should be the places where the Liu clan disciples usually cultivated. This time, the Liu clan really bled a lot. After taking out so many spirit veins, any quasi-emperor noble clan would suffer great losses or even collapse, Gong Ji said proudly as he stood beside Yifei. Shanluo shook her head. The heavenly punishment quasi-emperor's luck is astonishing. He once obtained the complete inheritance of the heavenly thunder holy sect. Just the spirit veins in there are over 100. 50 spirit veins can only hurt the Liu clan a little. However, it is impossible for them to collapse. She was, after all, the first miss of the Merchant Alliance. When it came to being well-informed, no one could compare to Shanluo. These words startled Yifei. He could not help but be even more wary of Lu Qing. Xia Jun had a long face as he sighed. I did not expect the Liu clan to be so strong. I actually offended an absolute genius like Lu Qing. The Liu clan won't hold a grudge against me, right? I haven't married yet. My requirements are not high. 8 or 10 will do. The key is that they must be beautiful. Lin Tianjiao and Guo Wang saw that Xia Jun was depressed and wanted to comfort him. However, when they heard the latter part of his words, they turned around and left, pretending not to know him. The little fatty also covered his face and left. He was ashamed to be associated with Xia Jun. Yifei almost vomited blood. He was completely convinced by Xia Jun's strange pursuit. Seeing that Lu Qing had left and that the martial emperor of the Sacred Court had gone ahead to negotiate with the Liu clan, Yifei decided to return to his cave and continue his closed-door cultivation. At this moment, Xia Jun suddenly said in surprise, "What's going on? Why are these mountains flying towards us?" Yifei turned around and saw that the 50 mountains were actually flying towards them. They landed around Yifei's spirit mountain. Immediately, the mountain Yifei was on was surrounded by countless mountains, forming a continuous chain of mountains. He was very confused. He looked at Shi Yingqing, who was flying towards him, and asked, "Third Dean, what's going on?" Shi Yingqing laughed heartily and said, "Yifei, don't you have the Sage Pagoda? Put all these spirit veins into the Sage Pagoda. In the future, these spirit veins will all be your cultivation resources. 50 spirit veins, all of them." Yifei was shocked. Although he knew that he would be valued when he returned to the Sacred Court, the Sacred Court valued him more than he expected. In the beast mark space, Xiao Qiao began to count the dragon tortoise's claws again, counting how many spirit stones there were in the 50 spiritual veins that could be eaten. However, even after counting the dragon tortoise's claws, Xiao Cao's eyes suddenly became big, and the dragon tortoise's bean-sized eyes suddenly lit up. It had already begun to look for the best time to eat. It was a pity that Shi Yingqing didn't know that there was a ferocious demon hidden in Yifei's body that specialized in destroying spirit veins. Otherwise, he would have to consider if he should give these spirit veins to Yifei. Of course, Shi Yingqing still thought highly of Yifei. Not to mention Yifei's potential. Just the lightning tribulation liquid that Yifei brought back was a great help to them quasi-emperors. At the same time, the 50 spirit veins were also the key to opening the Sage Pagoda's spirit river. It could be said that with these spirit veins, Yifei could make use of the Sage Pagoda's special ability to gather spirit veins into a spirit river. It would form a spirit river similar to the one in Sun Luo Hall, which could be used for cultivation. Moreover, this spirit river belonged to Yifei alone. It was only when he saw these spirit veins that Yifei realized that Shi Yingqing's offer of 50 spirit veins a month ago in exchange for Lu Qing was actually to open the Sage Pagoda and help him cultivate. "Thank you, Principal. Yifei will remember this kindness." Yifei's expression was solemn as he bowed solemnly to Shi Yingqing. "Haha, there's no need for that. You are a disciple of the sacred institution. We old fellows are waiting for you to lead this sacred institution to glory." Xingqing's eyes were filled with expectation as he stepped into the void. As a quasi-emperor, especially one who didn't have much lifespan left, they rarely appeared in public. For example, the ancestor of the legalism school, Fa Tiantong. If he didn't know that Yi Fei had killed Fa Wudao and was heartbroken, he definitely wouldn't have sacrificed his lifespan to come out against Yi Fei. I wonder if Fa Tiantong is dead after the last heavenly tribulation? Yi Fei thought to himself. Then, he whispered to Guo Wang, "Contact Fa Yihai as soon as possible. Tell him to come over. I have something to ask him." "Yes, I'll do it right away." Guo Wang discreetly left the crowd and went to contact Fa Yihai. Chapter 1386. Breaking through to Martial Monarch. Just as Yi Fei was busy collecting the spirit vein, Lu Qing returned to the small world where the Lu clan was under the escort of many martial monarchs. This was once a martial god realm of the heavenly thunder holy sect. It was extremely vast. It was also because the Tian Fa quasi-emperor accidentally discovered this treasure land that the Lu clan managed to surpass those ancient clans that had existed for tens of thousands of years, becoming the youngest and strongest quasi-emperor noble clan. If not for the Tian Fa quasi-emperor not breaking through to martial emperor, the Lu clan might have become a martial emperor noble clan. However, at this moment, Lu Qing could not feel any pride in her heart. Her pride, her belief in being undefeatable, had already been shattered by Yi Fei's immemorial heavenly technique. Because of this, her grandfather was forced to take out 50 spirit veins to redeem her. Lu Qing's heart was filled with self-blame. "Grandfather, it is all my fault. I was careless and damaged grandfather's reputation. I also caused the clan to suffer heavy losses." 50 spirit veins. Even a sacred academy would suffer heavy losses if they took out 50 spirit veins. What more the Lu clan, which had just become a quasi-emperor noble clan. Qing'er, remember this. The most important thing in the world will always be humans. As long as humans are fine, we can take back all the resources, no matter how many there are. The Tian Fa quasi-emperor was very open-minded. He looked at Lu Qing with a gentle gaze, as well as a trace of encouragement and expectation. Furthermore, that brat did not defeat you with his own strength. I can only say that he is too lucky. Not only did he obtain the power of a demonic god, he even obtained the inheritance of a divine emperor. This brat is a disaster. When the Tian Fa quasi-emperor mentioned Yi Fei, he revealed a rare murderous intent. Only now did Lu Qing know that the reason the Lu clan took so long to redeem her was that, aside from transporting the spirit veins, they had wasted a lot of time investigating Yi Fei. Yi Fei's experience in the outer seas and the true martial sacred academy was nothing special. He was equivalent to an unconventional super genius. What the Tian Fa quasi-emperor really valued was Yi Fei's experience in the Dragon Head realm. He killed Lu Rufeng and the other holy scions and repelled the joint pursuit of Lu Rulong and the other quasi-emperors. Even a peerless genius would find it hard to achieve such a valiant battle record, much less someone who had been abandoned by the heavens. It was only when the Tian Fa quasi-emperor personally questioned the severely injured Lu Rulong that Huo Long discovered Yi Fei's secret. Lu Qing was also very shocked. "Grandfather, is what you said true? There's actually a demon god hiding in Yi Fei's body?" "It is absolutely true." Lu Rulong and Huo Long, the two quasi-emperors, analyzed this together with grandfather. There is indeed an ancient blood demon sealed in the Dragon Head realm. Clearly, Yi Fei reached some kind of agreement with the blood demon and actually allowed the blood demon to hide in his body and recover from his injuries. The Tian Fa quasi-emperor's tone was grave. Therefore, the one who defeated you was not Yi Fei, but the blood demon hidden in his body. The one who killed Lu Rufeng and the other holy scions and severely injured Lu Rulong and the others should also be this blood demon. This lad is nurturing a tiger that invites calamity. When the blood demon recovers its cultivation, it will definitely suffer a merciless backlash. So that's how it is. Yi Fei actually borrowed the power of the evil demon god. To think that I still regarded him as an opponent, a target that I must surpass. Lu Qing's calm face revealed a touch of anger, as well as a touch of worry. She was not worried about Yi Fei, but about Shangluo, who remained in the true martial sacred academy. In the 1 month that she had been reduced to a maid, she had already become good friends with Shangluo. Surpass? You're a peerless genius, and Yi Fei is just a mortal who was lured into depravity by the demon god. You don't need to surpass him at all. It won't be long before he dies from the demon god's backlash. However, this is also good. Those old fools chose a demon god puppet to be the holy scion. When this lad and that old thing die, I'd like to see who else in the true martial sacred academy can stop me. A powerful aura emerged from the Tian Fa, quasi-emperor's body. The reason why he had told Lu Qing so much was because he wanted Lu Qing to walk out of the shadow of defeat as soon as possible and rebuild her belief in being invincible. As a peerless genius, with the belief of being invincible, she was basically unstoppable. Unless Yi Fei dared to let the demon god in his body attack again. Of course, the Tian Fa quasi-emperor did not know that the two quasi-emperors, Lu Rulong and Huolong, had only seen Yi Fei being controlled by the blood demon and did not see Fei using the heavenly tribulation to destroy the blood demon. This was why they had made the wrong judgment and missed the best opportunity to attack Yi Fei. The Sage's Tower. The Spirit River was turbulent. Although it was not as big as the Spirit River of the Sanluo Temple, the spirit qi gathered in a small river was still very shocking. With this spirit river, Yi Fei could finally breathe a sigh of relief. I finally don't have to worry about spirit stones anymore. As long as I don't destroy these 50 spirit veins, the spirit river of the Sage's Tower will provide an endless supply for my cultivation. He was now sitting cross-legged on the spirit river and circulating the battle god Dao and battle demon Dao at the same time. He began to try to use the spirit qi gathered by the 50 spirit veins to make a breakthrough in his cultivation. Xiao Xiao, on the other hand, led the dragon tortoise and swam around the spirit river, absorbing the astonishing amount of spiritual energy gathered in the spirit river. This feeling was as comfortable as soaking in the heaven and earth spiritual pool at any time. Of course, Xiao Xiao and the dragon turtle were very careful. They only took 20% of the spirit qi in the spirit river. The remaining 80% of the spirit qi turned into long rivers of spirit qi and surged into Yi Fei's primordial spirit. At this moment, Yi Fei's 8 primordial spirits had completely turned into 8 huge black holes. They continuously absorbed the spirit qi in the spirit river into their bodies and rapidly refined it. As a large amount of spirit qi was refined, even Yi Fei's 8 primordial spirits felt like they were soon filled to the brim with spirit qi. The 8 primordial spirits reached saturation at the same time. The inner yuan in his body had accumulated to an unprecedented level. Yi Fei could vaguely feel the invisible barrier in his body. This barrier was the final obstacle to him breaking through to the half-emperor realm. Then, Yi Fei mobilized all the spirit qi in his body and condensed it into a wave of inner yuan that was even more terrifying than the spirit river. It whistled and charged fiercely at the invisible barrier. Boom! The invisible barrier began to shake, but there was no sign of it being broken. After all, it was a very difficult process to break through from the 10th level of the martial saint realm to the half-emperor realm. It was equivalent to a bottleneck for martial artists. Even many top geniuses needed to break through several times before they could break through. As for those ordinary geniuses, they might need to break through dozens or hundreds of times before they could succeed. The amount of spirit qi and spirit stones consumed during this period was even more astronomical. Therefore, in the central region, there were very few people who relied on their own strength to break through to the half-emperor realm. Even if there were, it would take dozens or hundreds of years. This was also the reason why those geniuses of the empires would do anything to join the Sacred Institute, and rely on the quasi-emperor clans. 99% of the spirit veins in the central region were in the hands of these forces. If they wanted to break through quickly, the only way was to join the Sacred Institute or rely on the quasi-emperor clans. If it weren't for the 50 spirit veins he had obtained and condensed them into a spirit river, Yi Fei wouldn't dare to try to break through to the half-emperor realm so quickly. If the first time doesn't work, I'll try twice. If the second time doesn't work, I'll try thrice. Anyway, I have the spirit river in my hands. I don't lack spirit chi. After the first failure, Yi Fei didn't lose heart. Instead, he continued to mobilize the spirit chi in his body and tried for the second and third time. Chapter 1387. White Tiger's Sword. I've finally broken through to the half-emperor realm. Yi Fei let out a long sigh. After that, he became very happy. One must know that he had originally estimated that he would need at least 10 years of bitter cultivation to break through to the half-step emperor realm. However, the Saint Tower and the Spirit River had allowed him to break through to the half-emperor realm in just a year. According to the rules of the Holy Academy, once a disciple's strength reached the half-emperor realm, they would be qualified to accept disciples like the instructors. Every teacher was a small sect of their own. When these sects were combined, they would form a powerful sacred court. However, Yi Fei did not intend to accept disciples and preach the Tao. I'm still a distance away from those exceptional geniuses. Since those exceptional geniuses are focused on cultivating and trying to achieve a breakthrough, what reason do I have to slack off? In particular, Xiajun also told Yi Fei that Zhao Yu had now become the holy maiden of the heavenly Tao Academy, and there were even faint signs of her tribulation breaking through to the martial emperor realm. This made Yi Fei feel even more pressure. If that tigress breaks through to martial monarch, she will definitely come to kill me. Everyone could fall behind, but not Zhao Yu. After all, this was a matter of life and death. Yi Fei did not dare to be careless. He specifically instructed Xiao Chao to keep a close eye on the dragon turtle so that it wouldn't have the chance to eat the spirit vein. The first thing Yi Fei did after breaking through to the half-emperor realm was to use the remaining spirit river to cultivate the immemorial celestial technique of Emperor Zhenwu, the 4 phases of Zhenwu. This celestial technique has a total of 4 levels. They're the profound martial realm, the vermilion bird realm, the white tiger realm, and the azure dragon realm. These 4 levels are all equal. Every time you reach a new level, you'll be able to condense a new domain. When all 4 domains are cultivated together, you'll be able to successfully cultivate the 4 aspects of the true martial realm. Of course, this heaven technique also has its flaws. It can only be cultivated into 4 domains. As for what to do after successfully cultivating it, there is no record of it. Perhaps it is incomplete, or perhaps the martial god who created this heaven technique did not have the time to perfect it. However, even if this heaven technique has its flaws, it is still much more powerful than those martial emperor's ultimate techniques. Furthermore, I can easily infuse the domains that I cultivate into the 8 trigrams. Yi Fei's eyes lit up. In the end, the heavenly dragon's 8 extremities was an Empyrean cultivation method. It far surpassed the primordial heavenly arts. Yet there was no record of a cultivation domain in it. Perhaps in the eyes of that Empyrean, the strength of a domain was too low and he disdained to record it. But in the eyes of Yi Fei, his starting point was too low. What he lacked was a method to condense a domain. It just so happened that he had obtained the 4 signs of true martial, which recorded the process of comprehending a domain in detail. Moreover, every time he cultivated one of the 4 signs of true martial, he would obtain a complete domain. This was also the strength of the primordial heaven art. Generally, martial arts below the martial emperor level were all profound. Therefore, many cultivators needed to constantly learn a large number of martial arts to comprehend the profound within them and fuse them together to form a domain. Not only was it time-consuming and laborious, but this type of domain was also mixed. Before a domain was formed, no one could guarantee the strength of the domain. However, the immemorial heavenly art was different. What it contained was originally a combination of various powerful domains that had been discovered by the predecessors. Therefore, as long as one successfully cultivated the primordial heaven art, the domain that they comprehended would definitely be incomparably powerful. It was also because of this that Yi Fei planned to use the 4 signs of true Martial's domain to make up for his weaknesses and cultivate his heavenly dragon's 8 extremities. After all, the heavenly dragon's 8 extremities that fused 8 domains was definitely much stronger than the 4 signs of true Martial that only had 4 domains. Yi Fei even planned to combine the 4 signs of true Martial with the Tai Chi domain to see if he could use Tai Chi as the foundation to create a new sword technique. Since I can use Yin and Yang as the foundation to create the Tai Chi duality sword, then why can't I use the 4 signs as the foundation to create the Tai Chi 4-sign sword? Of course, the process of creating such a sword technique would definitely be very difficult. Currently, he had only fused the power of despair 5 times. At the very least, he needed to fuse the power of despair 6 times and reach the level of a peak genius before he could comprehend the 4 signs of Tai Chi. Right now, Yi Fei still focused on cultivating the 4 signs of true Martial. Yi Fei decided to first comprehend the white tiger domain of the 4 signs of true Martial. Clouds follow the dragon. Wind follows the tiger. The white tiger domain just happens to correspond to the wind trigram of the 8 trigrams. After learning the white tiger domain, I can fuse the white tiger domain with the rank 8 heavenly dragon. This way, after the blood dragon that represents the earth trigram, I can condense the wind dragon that represents the wind trigram. Yi Fei gathered his thoughts and started to focus on cultivating the white tiger domain. What appeared in his mind wasn't a cultivation technique, but all sorts of mysterious symbols. These symbols were the specific method to cultivate the white tiger image. What he needed to do now was to condense these symbols into a complete white tiger image in his mind. This image could activate the nomological powers of the heavens and earth, allowing him to possess the strength of a white tiger. Furthermore, everyone's white tiger image was different, and the strength of the white tiger they obtained was also different. For example, Xingqing's white tiger image was a deity. Emperor Zhen Wu's divine fist was formed from the white tiger's sharp claws. I wonder what I've cultivated. Although the white tiger divine fist is very strong, this sky technique isn't complete. The power of the white tiger divine fist definitely can't compare to other complete primordial sky techniques. That's right. Why don't I transform the white tiger divine fist into the white tiger divine sword? This way, I can create the foundation for the Tai Chi 4-sign sword. Such a thought suddenly flashed through Yi Fei's mind. Following his thoughts, the white tiger in his mind also changed. It was no longer a ferocious tiger with sharp claws, but a terrifying sword tiger with a huge sword on its back. It squatted in the void and tore through the cage. Azure Dragon Heaven suppressing prison. White tiger escaping cage. Yi Fei suddenly shouted. He took a step forward and appeared in the sky of the true Martial Sacred Academy's small world. He suddenly stretched out his hand and slapped forward. Instantly, a terrifying tiger roar came from the sky. However, what appeared in Yi Fei's hand was a huge silver-white sword mountain. As Yi Fei swung the sword mountain forward, one of the 50 mountain peaks surrounding the St. Prince Peak was instantly sliced in half. The disciples of the Holy Institute who were cultivating on the nearby mountain peaks were shocked, and they all jumped up and down in panic. In fact, Yi Fei's white tiger divine sword had even attracted the attention of Xingqing, who was cultivating. When he saw through his divine consciousness that Yi Fei had cultivated neither the divine image nor the sharp claws of a white tiger, even though he had already become a quasi-emperor, Xingqing could not help but open his mouth in shock. This kid, what he has cultivated is the phenomenon of a white tiger. Chapter 1388. The Ancient Road of Stars Grand Principle. Yifei has just broken through to the half-emperor realm. Isn't it too difficult for him to take the ancient road of stars? Shi Yingqing asked in surprise. The white-robed elder shook his head solemnly. An unpolished jade is worthless. Others may wait, but Yifei can't. He's a person abandoned by the heavens. No one knows how terrifying his martial emperor tribulation will be. Only the ancient road of stars can help him transform. Shi Yingqing asked in a serious tone, Grand Principal, are you gambling? The white-robed elder said firmly, Since this little guy can open the true martial sacred hall that no one has opened for 10,000 years, I'll take the gamble. If Yifei passes the ancient road of stars, our true martial sacred academy will definitely prosper. If he can't pass, then the true martial sacred academy will be buried with him. Yingqing, do you understand my painstaking efforts? Of course I understand. The heavenly tribulation liquid can only be used once, and it can only extend our lifespans for 10 years. If we can't see the rise of the true martial sacred academy in these 10 years, then when we die, the true martial sacred academy will be removed from the central plains. Yifei is our only hope. Shi Yingqing's tone was solemn. The white-robed elder sighed. We're all old. The hope of reviving the sacred academy depends on this little guy. We must fully support him on this path. Yifei was very satisfied with the power of the white tiger divine sword. The white tiger is in charge of killing. This white tiger divine sword is powerful enough, but it's not perfect when used. It still has room for improvement. Although the 4 manifestations of true martial was an incomplete primordial celestial technique, the power of each manifestation was equivalent to a martial emperor's lost technique of the other sacred academies. Of course, to fully master the white tiger divine sword and unleash its power, the most important thing was to cultivate the white tiger domain. Only with the domain could the white tiger divine sword's power be maximized. I'm only at the initial stage of forming the white tiger divine sword. There's still a long way to go before I can form the white tiger domain. Continue your closed-door training and see if you can condense the white tiger domain. Yifei had only appeared for a few breaths of time before he disappeared into the same pagoda and continued to cultivate. Another 3 months passed, and he had finally cultivated the white tiger divine sword to the point where he could use it as he pleased. However, Yifei was still unable to cultivate the white tiger domain. It wasn't that he wasn't talented enough, but that the spiritual river in the sage's tower was nearly dried up. After all, the spiritual river in the sage's tower was formed by the convergence of spirit veins, and the spirit veins in Yifei's hands weren't endless. By the time he finished refining the spiritual energy in the sage's tower, the spiritual river would naturally disappear. Fortunately, the spirit vein in the sage's tower was still there. As long as he waited for the spiritual energy in the spirit vein to recover, he would have an endless supply of spiritual river to cultivate. Third Dean, why are you standing outside? Is there something you need from me? Yifei called back Xiao Qiao and the dragon turtle, then put away the sage's tower and walked out of the cave. He saw Shi Yingqing standing outside and quickly invited him into the cave. Shi Yingqing nodded slightly and said, Yifei, since you've broken through to the half-step emperor realm and cultivated the 4 aspects of true martial, you can forget about advancing quickly in the Saint Court unless you walk on the ancient path of the stars. What's the ancient path of the stars? Yifei was curious. Shi Yingqing's expression was solemn. The ancient path of the stars formation dates back to the ancient times. It's an exclusive training ground for the ancient and primordial geniuses. There are countless opportunities hidden in it, and there are also many opportunities, secret realms, and ruins left behind by martial emperors, martial gods, and even sovereigns of the world. Just finding one will benefit you immensely. When the holy scions of the 4 great Saint Courts graduate, many will choose to enter the ancient path of the stars to train as their final graduation test. Of course, it's not just our Saint Courts. Many of the quasi-emperor noble clans' genius disciples will enter to train as well. Now, it all depends on whether you dare to enter or not. Shi Yingqing's introduction was very detailed. At the end, he added, for example, The immemorial heavenly technique that the Tianfa quasi-emperor obtained was found in a ruin left behind by the Heavenly Thunder holy sect on the ancient path of the stars. Dean, what did you say? There are immemorial heavenly techniques on the ancient path of the stars. Yi Fei's eyes widened in shock. However, he was not blinded by these temptations. Instead, his expression turned grave. This ancient path of the stars must be very dangerous, right? An immemorial heavenly technique was already sufficient for any quasi-emperor to fight to the death for it. That's right. This ancient path of the stars is very dangerous. Even a quasi-emperor might die if they're not careful. However, anyone who can successfully pass through the ancient path of the stars safely passed the martial monarch tribulation and became a martial monarch or even a quasi-emperor. Shi Yingqing paused for a while, giving Yi Fei some time to digest this information. Then he said, Yi Fei, you can also reject this path. That way, as long as you can trigger the martial monarch tribulation within 10 years, we 3 quasi-emperors and the Supreme Dean will do our best to help you overcome this heavenly tribulation. Dean, in that case, have you ever walked this ancient path of the stars? Yi Fei asked after thinking for a while. Shi Yingqing said, of course. Back then, this old man was 30 years old and became the holy son of the true martial sacred court. Only when I was 50 years old did I muster the courage to step onto the ancient path of the stars with the holy sons of the other 3 holy academies and the peak geniuses of more than 20 quasi-emperor noble clans. In the end, 2/3 of us died in the ancient path of the stars. The rest of us returned safely and broke through to martial monarch. Does that mean that if one passes the ancient path of the stars, they will definitely be able to pass the martial monarch tribulation? Yi Fei was secretly shocked. 2/3 of the 20 or so peak geniuses had died. This casualty ratio was too horrifying. However, Yi Fei soon noticed another important piece of information. Everyone who walked out of the ancient path of the stars successfully passed the martial monarch tribulation. This made Yi Fei's heart beat faster. After all, he was a person abandoned by the heavens. The difficulty of passing the martial monarch tribulation was 10 times, or even dozens of times more difficult than the others. Even if he comprehended the mysteries and merged his domains, which could reduce the difficulty of passing the martial monarch tribulation to a certain extent, this was only a theoretical speculation. In fact, Yi Fei was not confident that he could pass the martial monarch tribulation. However, the appearance of this ancient path of the stars gave Yi Fei a glimmer of hope. Third Dean, are you sure that the people who walked out of the ancient path of the stars successfully passed the martial monarch tribulation? Yi Fei's expression was very serious. Shi Yingqing said in a deep voice, I'm sure. It's clearly recorded in the ancient records that none of the geniuses who walked out of the ancient path of the stars failed to pass the martial monarch tribulation. However, I can't guarantee that this ancient path of the stars will be effective for those who were abandoned by the heavens. Everything depends on effort. If we don't try, how will we know that it won't be effective? Yi Fei shook his head. His eyes suddenly became firm. I want to give this ancient path of the stars a try. Seeing that Yi Fei had made up his mind so easily, Shi Yingqing was shocked. He said in a deep voice, Yi Fei, you've made up your mind so quickly. Aren't you afraid of the dangers of the ancient path of the stars? Of course I'm afraid. However, as long as there's a slight possibility that it can reduce the danger of my martial monarch tribulation, I have to give it a try. Yi Fei's tone was resolute and decisive. The martial monarch tribulation was a fatal tribulation for those who were abandoned by the heavens. He had to find a way to pass this tribulation. Only by passing the martial monarch tribulation could he truly reach the peak of the martial path. However, Third Dean, I can't go on the ancient path of the stars right now. If you're willing, I would like to take a leave and go home. Chapter 1389. Everything is ready, all right. If you want to go back, you can leave at any time. However, it's best that you enter the starry sky ancient road within 10 years. While we old fellows are still capable of fighting, we can help you if you're in danger. Shi Yingqing understood Yi Fei's feelings very well. Before he stepped on the ancient Star Road, he had prepared for 20 years before he finally mustered up the courage to enter. If it weren't for the fact that we don't have much lifespan left, we'd really like to give you more time to prepare. Shi Yingqing sighed again. 10 years seemed to be a long time, but for powerful warriors, a seclusion could last for more than 10 years or even 100 years. It was very short. Yi Fei was very satisfied with this. 10 years was enough for him to return to the northern region and reunite with his family. It was also enough for him to prepare for the ancient Star Road. Therefore, he began to make all kinds of preparations for his return. Originally, Yi Fei wanted to invite Xia Jun and Lin Tianjiao to return together. Unfortunately, as the true martial sacred hall was completely opened, Elder Liu and the other martial emperors also selected the first batch of disciples to enter the sacred hall to cultivate. Lin Tianjiao, Xia Jun, and Shang Luo were among them. They had already entered the sacred hall to cultivate for another year under the arrangement of the martial emperors. Due to the special restriction of the true martial sacred hall, cultivating for a year inside was equivalent to cultivating for 10 years outside. The opportunity was very precious. Yi Fei didn't want to let them miss this opportunity. This is good. Although it's a bit lonely, it's still free. But before I leave, there are 2 things that I must take care of. Yi Fei was in the cave residence, sorting out the things he wanted to take back in his space belt. When he saw the remaining 3 bloodline crystals, he was moved. He sent a message to Gua King and asked him to come over. "How is it? Have you contacted Fa Yihai?" Yi Fei asked. "I've already contacted him. Fa Yihai is waiting outside the small world," Gua King said. "Good. Let him wait for me at the usual place. Gua King, while I'm away, you're in charge of the Saint Mountain. Gong Ji and the other followers will stay if they listen to orders. If they don't, let them leave. I won't force anyone to stay." Yi Fei ordered lightly. Gua King nodded. Suddenly, he remembered something. "Saint, recently, many disciples have admired your reputation and want to become your followers. Do you think these newcomers?" Yi Fei shook his head. "I don't want any of them. Quality is more important than quantity. After I leave, you will also have to screen these followers one by one. They don't have to be strong, but they must have a pure and innocent heart." Yi Fei did not say what it meant to have a pure and innocent heart, but he believed that Gua Wang would be able to understand the meaning behind it. In the remaining few days, Yi Fei talked with Gongji alone, and then went to the old disciple's residence. He planned to visit Jiang Cheng, a good friend of his from the Snow Wind Empire. As time went by, he had become the saint of the true martial sacred academy. Jiang Cheng, on the other hand, had become a senior disciple. Although he was not eliminated, he had a hard time in the fierce competition of the sacred academy. Even so, Jiang Cheng still mustered up his courage to improve himself and take the test to become a mortal disciple. Jiang Cheng was not the only one. Many warriors of the Snow Wind Empire were working hard, perhaps because of the fall of their country. After a few years of training in the Sacred Academy, Princess Jiang Xiaoma had completely forgotten about the fall of her country. She began to cultivate in the Sacred Academy and take the test to become a mortal disciple. Xue Wushang, the former #1 warrior of the Snow Wind Empire, had passed the test and become a mortal disciple before Yi Fei returned. He was gradually valued by the Sacred Academy. Of course, some people improved while others fell behind. Ning Zhongchen, the former #1 sword warrior of the Snow Wind Empire, was affected by the Ning family's establishment of the Yongning Empire. He gradually began to slack on the path of martial arts. In a few years, not only did his breakthrough slow, but he also planned to give up martial arts completely. He was about to return to the Yongning Empire and become the crown prince. There were also Huang Feiying, Jiang Fan, and other geniuses of the empire who were once enemies of Yi Fei. After a few years of competition, not only were their fighting spirit worn away, but they were also unwilling to leave the Sacred Academy. They were ridiculed by others. Therefore, like many slacking senior disciples, They began to build luxurious palaces outside the sacred academy and enjoy life to the fullest. Some of them married and had children. Yifei also sighed at this. In addition to giving Jiangcheng and the others some treasures to improve their strength, he also ordered Guowang to take care of them appropriately. It could be considered as putting an end to the karma of the Snow Wind Empire. Fei greets the young lord. In a hidden cave outside the Sacred Academy, Fei knelt on one knee and bowed to Yifei with fear. Yifei was a little surprised. Fei, why are you so afraid of me? This subordinate isn't afraid, but worried. Fei hesitated and didn't say much. Seeing Fei's frightened appearance, Yifei was slightly surprised. Suddenly, he thought of something and smiled. Tianan, that old dog, shouldn't be dead. He should have escaped back to the legalism school. Did he say that I was controlled by the demon god, and that was why I injured him? Fei, let me ask you. If I was controlled by the blood demon, would you still listen to my orders? Yifei suddenly asked coldly. Young lord, I have already made a heavenly blood oath to follow you. If you want this subordinate to die, even if this subordinate begs for mercy, it will still be difficult to escape death. I am willing to listen to your orders. Fei said with a bitter face. For the 1000th time in his heart, he regretted being tricked by Yifei. He even brought his own rations and became the biggest traitor of the legalism school. However, Yifei held his heavenly blood oath, so Fei couldn't resist. He could only hold back his tears and accept his fate. Seeing Fei's respectful performance, Yifei nodded in satisfaction. He also withdrew his coldness and comforted him gently. Fei, don't worry. I'm not controlled by the demon god. I'm still me. These words were a bit of a mouthful, but Fei's face was already filled with incomparable shock. What? Young lord is not controlled by the demon god? Could it be that the one who killed Lu Ruffing and the other saints and injured the old ancestor was actually the young lord himself? Boom! Like a thunderbolt, Fei suddenly revealed an excited expression and said loudly, This subordinate swears to be loyal to the young lord. Fei knew what it meant to be able to kill a saint and injure a boundary emperor. Yifei's future was limitless. If he followed such a young lord, he would definitely have a chance to succeed. Chapter 1390. Lu Chaoyang, Young Master, is this really Fei Wudao's fate will bloodline? In the future, I can become the master of the school of legalism? Fei was so excited that he spoke incoherently. Yifei understood Fei's excitement. Originally, Fei was only an ordinary half-emperor of the school of legalism and could not awaken his bloodline. His status was basically no different from a servant. This was also why Yifei valued Fei. He was at the bottom of the school of legalism and had nothing to do with the higher-ups of the school of legalism. He was very easy to control. If Fei worked hard and became the master of the school of legalism, then Yifei would indirectly control a half-emperor family to work for him. Yifei had thought about this matter for a long time before he made the decision to give the precious fate will bloodline to Fei. Since the school of legalism dares to hunt down Xiao Chao, even if it's a half-emperor family, I will definitely destroy it. Now, I have already planted the seeds of the school of legalism's destruction. All that's left is the Bailey Empire, the accomplice in hunting down Xiao Chao. Yifei did not forget the time when Xiao Chao was chased to the northern region by the Bailey clan and fled for his life. Although he later killed Bailey Zhen and ended the grudge, the Bailey clan became the Bailey Empire. However, the Bailey clan had subsequently become the Bailey Empire, and under the orders of the school of legalism, they had issued a bounty of 100 billion on his head. He had always remembered this debt in his heart. This time, I will have to pass through the Bailey Empire on my way back to the northern region. It's a good opportunity to end the grudge with the Bailey clan and help Xiao Chao take revenge for being chased down. Yifei subconsciously glanced at Xiao Chao in the beastmark space, only to see that Xiao Chao had gone to sleep after eating his fill. He was speechless. Recently, Xiao Chao had almost become a lazy pig. It was all because of the dragon turtle's bad influence. After spending another dozen days, he helped Fa Ehai completely merge with the school of legalism's special fate wheel bloodline. Fa Ehai was so grateful that tears filled his eyes. For the first time, he did not regret following Yi Fei for no reason. After sending Fa Ehai away and returning to the legalism school, Yi Fei also left the sacred court and began to head towards the former Snow Wind Empire. According to the rules of the Sacred Academy, if a disciple cultivated for 100 years and broke through to the half-emperor realm, he would be considered as having successfully graduated. The sacred institution would also recruit new disciples and continue to nurture them. That was the reason why the Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list in the middle ground was held once every 100 years. Of course, if the disciples passed through the ancient road of the starry sky, they could graduate in advance and even skip the stage of being a teacher and become a martial emperor in the Saint Academy directly. Of course, the disciple could also choose to leave the Sacred Academy and establish his own royal clan. He only needed to act when the Sacred Academy was in trouble. From the true martial sacred courtyard to the outer sea, they had to pass through dozens of empires along the way. These empires were big and small, strong and weak. However, even the weakest empires were more than 100 times stronger than the 4 great nations of the northern region. These empires had very different customs. Almost all of the second-class and above empires had martial emperors. These martial emperors were all from the 4 great sacred courtyards. They also helped the 4 great sacred courtyards to control the thousands of empires in the middle continent. Occasionally, many martial emperors who were not from the sacred courtyards would establish their own martial imperial city in the cracks of some empires and dominate a region. Yi Fei's journey had been filled with fighting and killing. There were not many opportunities to relax and travel around the empires like this. Along the way, he deliberately slowed down. Every time he arrived at an empire, he would transform into a mortal and bring Xiao Qiao and the dragon turtle to experience the customs of the various empires. During the journey, Yi Fei rode on the dragon turtle and then entered the Saint Tower with Xiao Qiao to continue cultivating the 4 symbols of true martial, an immemorial celestial technique. After about half a year, Yi Fei finally formed the Vermilion Bird Divine Sword on the basis of the White Tiger Divine Sword. Different from the White Tiger Divine Sword that was filled with killing intent, the Vermilion Bird Divine Sword was filled with flames and high temperature. When the sword slashed out, the sword chi was as hot as the sun. Its power was very terrifying. Just the White Tiger Divine Sword and the Vermilion Bird Divine Sword are equivalent to 2 martial emperors' ultimate techniques. If I form a complete domain, even a martial emperor's ultimate technique will not be a match for the 4 symbols of true martial. This was also the reason why the true martial sacred courtyard was able to dominate for tens of thousands of years and remain the strongest sacred courtyard. If the Tian Fa Quasi-Emperor had not relied on amazing luck to obtain the complete Tian Fa celestial technique and suppress the 4 symbols of true martial, the true martial sacred courtyard would not have gradually declined. Just like this, Yi Fei cultivated and traveled. Soon, a familiar scenery appeared in front of him. It was a huge dragon vein that carried the huge imperial capital of the ancient city. Squeak, squeak. Xiao Qiao held 2 sticks of candied haws in his hand and ate excitedly. He pointed at the imperial capital below and kept talking to Yi Fei. Yi Fei was immediately depressed. Xiao Qiao did not finish the stick in his hand and wanted to eat a new stick of candied haws. I didn't expect the capital of the Snow Wind Empire to fall into the hands of the Bailey family. Yi Fei looked at the flag of the fate wheel fluttering on the city wall, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. They actually used the fate wheel of the legalism sect as the flag of the empire. On the surface, the Bailey Empire seemed powerful, but it was actually just a puppet of the legalism sect. Yi Fei sent his spiritual sense down, and a battle that suddenly occurred outside the imperial capital attracted his attention. It was obviously 2 young prodigies fighting. One of them was wearing a dragon robe, and should be a member of the Bailey family's imperial family. The other was wearing a long green robe and holding a large spear in his hand. He was fighting with the man in the dragon robe in the air. The two of them fought intensely, and it was obvious that they were fighting with their lives on the line. However, the man in the dragon robe was clearly not a match for the man in green. After fighting for a while, the man in the dragon robe suddenly retreated and ordered loudly, "Damn foreign sea bastards, release the arrows and kill these foreign sea bastards." Yes, Crown Prince, rumble. In the end, they were not far from the imperial capital. Soon, a large number of iron hooves could be seen from afar. Experts from the Bailey Empire's army were riding on horses. They were all Wujun. The generals in the lead were even at the level of absolute Earth Almighty. "Lu Chaoyang, you should just surrender. Your sister is already in my hands. As long as you surrender, when I marry your sister, you will still be my uncle." The man in the dragon robe had a smug look on his face. "Bai Liyun, you shameless villain. You are the crown prince, but you actually did such a despicable thing. If you dare to touch a single hair on my sister's head, I will not spare even the chickens and dogs of your Bailey family." Lu Chaoyang lifted the mask on his face. His face was covered in crisscrossing scars. What was even more frightening was that he only had one eye. The other eye was like a frightening black hole that made people shudder. That person is really Lu Chaoyang? Lu Chaoyang the bastard? Yi Fei was shocked when he saw Lu Chaoyang's appearance through his spiritual sense. He still remembered that when he was in the Lu family, Lu Chaoyang was young and impulsive. He had accidentally fallen into the maze trap set by Zhao Qianjun. At that time, Lu Chaoyang was also very handsome and full of vitality. He did not expect that after 10 years, not only was Lu Chaoyang's appearance completely ruined, but his temperament had also changed. Yi Fei did not recognize him at first sight. Obviously, Lu Chaoyang must have encountered great danger on his way to Zhongzhou. However, with danger came opportunity. Lu Xiaoyang's strength was completely different from when he was in the northern region. He was currently in the 7th stage of the earth-penetrating realm, while that crown prince Bai Liyun was in the 6th stage of the earth-penetrating realm, one stage lower than him. What made Yi Fei even more incredulous was that he felt the aura of bloodline awakening from Lu Chaoyang. Chapter 1391. Bloodthirsty Fei was a little shocked. Bloodline power was almost extinct in the northern domain. Only in the central continent, because there were still descendants of ancient powerhouses, special bloodlines had survived. Lu Xiaoyang's Lu family was just an ordinary family in the north region. They didn't seem to have any bloodline power. Yi Fei guessed that Lu Xiaoyang must have obtained his bloodline power after leaving the north region. By Liyun Dai, Lu Xiaoyang activated his bloodline power. A black shadow emerged from his body and formed a huge shadow. It rushed towards Bai Liyun. Split Shadow Spear. Taking a closer look, it wasn't just a shadow, but a huge spear made up of pure shadows. A powerful man from the Bailey Empire's army quickly moved to stop the shadow and protect the crown prince. He rushed towards Lu Xiaoyang, but his body was pierced by the shadow, leaving a large bloody scar on his body. He died on the spot. The other almighties of the 100 Miles Empire were completely enraged. They attacked Lu Xiaoyang one after another. Lu Xiaoyang was not afraid. The shadow in his hand suddenly split, forming even more shadow spears that pierced towards the almighties who were surrounding him. Yi Fei stood in the clouds high in the sky. He looked at Lu Xiaoyang's strange shadow attack with shock. He saw the shadows pass by, and the army's elites either had their bodies pierced or their heads blown up. What a strange attack. He can use shadows to kill enemies. Could it be related to Lu Xiaoyang's special bloodline? Yi Fei pondered. At this time, the soldiers who surrounded Lu Xiaoyang were scared out of their wits. Crown Prince Bai Liyun's eyes flashed with a haze. He shouted coldly, "A bunch of good-for-nothings. So many absolute Earth Almighties can't beat him. What's the point of my Bailey family raising you? Your Highness, it's not that we don't want to risk our lives. It's just that we can't guard against his shadow attack. It's better to let the martial saints do it." Some of the soldiers who had retreated pleaded in horror. Dozens of absolute Earth Almighties had joined forces to attack Lu Xiaoyang. In the end, only 10 of the strongest Almighties had retreated. The others had all died under the strange attack of the split shadow spear. This made Bai Liyun's face turn even uglier. He shouted angrily, "Lu Xiaoyang, don't be so shameless. Put down your weapon now, and I'll let your sister go. If you continue to block me, I'll order people to offer your sister as a sacrifice. Bai Liyun, how dare you?" Lu Xiaoyang was completely enraged. He was so angry that his whole body turned into a shadow. In the end, Lu Xiaoyang was no longer on the ground. Only a blurry shadow was left. Under the sunlight, it charged towards Bai Liyun. Demon's wrath, demon god. As expected of the crown prince, Bai Liyun was extremely powerful. The moment Lu Xiaoyang's figure disappeared, he had already sensed the majesty. At this moment, he did not hesitate to activate the Bai Li clan's unique devil flame bloodline. Boundless black demonic demon flames quickly wrapped around Bai Liyun, forming a black demonic god. He punched the ground with a terrifying demonic fist. A sinister and twisted black shadow rushed out from one of the Almighty's shadows. At the same time, a shadow spear light collided with Bai Liyun's demonic fist. The demonic fist and the spear light were destroyed at the same time. Bai Liyun and Lu Xiaoyang were both injured by each other's qi. Bai Liyun retreated in fear. Lu Xiaoyang's only eye flashed with a savage light. He ignored his injuries and charged at Bai Liyun like a madman. "Help!" Bai Liyun cried out in fear. He had cursed Lu Xiaoyang for being a lowly commoner and despised him for being a foreign martial artist. But when he was defeated, this crown prince of the Bai Li Empire was so scared that he lost all his courage. He could only hide in the surrounding army, looking for a scapegoat. Yi Fei shook his head inwardly. He hadn't expected that the Bailey family would decline so severely after Bailey Zhen's death. At the very least, Bailey Zhen was a true martial artist. He dared to fight and risk his life. In times of danger, he had the courage to take his enemies down with him. As for Bai Liyun, although his demonic flame bloodline was comparable to Bailey Zhen's, his temperament and will to fight were far inferior. The ordinary absolute Earth Almighties weren't a match for the crazy Lu Xiaoyang. Just as Bai Liyun hid in the crowd, Lu Xiaoyang's shadow spear light charged into the crowd and killed the remaining dozen absolute Earth Almighties. No one was a match for Lu Xiaoyang. His shadow attack was simply too strange. Bai Liyun's face was also pale. He could only watch as a huge spear shadow whistled through the air and pierced his body. "You, the Bailey family, will never let you off." Bai Liyun roared with hatred. "Ever since you captured my sister, I've never let the Bailey clan off. I've said before, I'll destroy you and your empire." Lu Xiaoyang roared madly. Another line of bloody tears rolled down his only eye. Yi Fei could see that Lu Xiaoyang and Lu Ruyin were very close. In order to save Lu Ruyin, Lu Xiaoyang was willing to do anything, including killing the crown prince of the Bailey Empire. He might even destroy the Bailey Empire. The martial artists of the northern region are indeed courageous. Yi Fei nodded secretly. Suddenly, he turned his head and looked at the sky in the distance. A huge devil's hand had extended from the imperial capital all the way here. Just as Lu Xiaoyang was about to kill Bai Liyun, it grabbed him again. Lu Xiaoyang's face immediately turned ugly. He couldn't wait for Bai Liyun to be rescued. Suddenly, he disregarded everything and rushed towards Bai Liyun again, wanting to kill him. Presumptuous. A lowly outer sea commoner dares to act presumptuously in the capital of the Bailey Empire. You and that lowly commoner called Yi Fei deserve to die. 9 generations of your family should be executed. In the sky, a middle-aged man wearing golden armor appeared silently. He was a powerful martial sage of the Bailey family. With just a palm, he shattered Lu Xiaoyang's spearlight. At the same time, the merciless devil's hand pressed down, wanting to kill Lu Xiaoyang mercilessly. Yi Fei resisted the urge to attack and continued to coldly watch the battle. At this time, the injured Bai Liyun suddenly coughed up a mouthful of blood. "Seventh uncle, Don't kill him first. This lowly commoner's siblings are hiding a huge secret. I must get it. Humph. Lowly commoner, consider yourself lucky. Since the crown prince spared your life, what are you waiting for? Quickly kneel down and tell me all the secrets you know. Chapter 1392. Attack of course. Lu Xiaoyang would not kneel. He quickly stabbed his spear into the ground and gripped it tightly with both hands. He said miserably, I, Lu Xiaoyang, can die, but I will never kneel. If you don't let my sister go, I will fight with my life on the line. Fight with your life on the line? You, a peasant from the outer sea? Bai Liyun said coldly. With the protection of the martial saint, he regained the aura of a high and mighty crown prince. Lu Xiaoyang spat out a mouthful of blood and sneered, but the peasant in your eyes killed Bai Liyun and joined the real martial saint academy. Shut up. The golden-armored martial saint was furious. Bai Liyun's death was the greatest loss to the Bailey clan. Because of this, the Bailey Empire had issued a death order. Anyone who mentioned Yi Fei would be exterminated. Even the surname Yi had to be changed. Otherwise, they would die. Hearing Lu Xiaoyang mention Yi Fei, the golden-armored martial saint was completely enraged. He increased the power of the martial saint and shattered Lu Xiaoyang's spear. Then he forced Lu Xiaoyang to kneel on the ground and spit out blood. Yi Fei frowned, but he still had no intention of making a move. A martial saint is only SOSO. Give me 10 years, and I will surpass all of you. You can only look up to me. Lu Xiaoyang spat out a mouthful of blood. After being seriously injured by the martial saint, he staggered and stood up again. Peasant, how dare you resist? Bai Liyun was furious. He suddenly slapped Lu Xiaoyang across the air, causing him to roll on the ground. However, after rolling, Lu Xiaoyang's consciousness was blurred. He was still covered in blood and struggled to get up from the ground. A few half-sages from the Bailey Empire who had rushed over were frightened. They looked at each other and said, why are these outer sea martial artists not afraid of death? Yi Fei was like this, and this person is also like this. These people are so poor in the outer sea barren land. They only have this life left. There were also some half-sages from the middle state who were proud and felt that they were superior. The golden-armored martial sage nodded and said proudly, my Bailey Empire is no longer what it used to be. Even if that Yi Fei dares to come to the imperial capital, my Bailey family will make him kneel before us. Of course, our Bailey Empire has a long history of martial arts. If a piece of trash abandoned by the heavens dares to step out of the Holy Institute, this crown prince will personally make him regret offending our Bailey Empire. Bai Liyun said arrogantly. Then he pointed at Lu Xiaoyang and ordered the half-saints who had rushed over, men, chop off his limbs and dig out his eyes. Bring him back to the imperial capital. I want to marry his sister in front of him. Bastards, I won't let you go even if I become a ghost. Lu Xiaoyang suddenly roared like a ghost. He jumped up and charged at Bai Liyun like a madman. Bai Liyun's face was cold. The golden-armored martial sage also looked disdainful. He swatted Lu Xiaoyang to the ground like a fly and said, an ant will always be an ant. In front of this martial sage, even Yi Fei can only kneel. Who do you think you are? How dare you come to the imperial capital and behave atrociously? The half-saints who had rushed overtook advantage of Lu Xiaoyang's serious injury and pressed him to the ground, making him unable to struggle. Lu Xiaoyang couldn't move, but he still roared, come, kill me if you have guts. Even if I die, I will turn into a ghost and take revenge on you. Don't worry, you and your sister won't even have the chance to turn into ghosts if you fall into my hands. Crown Prince, I heard that the sister of this lowly commoner is very beautiful. I wonder if you can part with her? I will return her to you after I've played with her. A seventh uncle, what are you talking about? She's just a lowly servant girl. If you like her, just take her. Bai Liyun wanted to win over this martial sage. Without hesitation, he gave Lu Ruyan away as a gift. The golden-armored martial sage was very satisfied. Lu Xiaoyang kept roaring, you bastards, if you have the guts, come at me alone. The golden-armored martial sage's face suddenly turned ugly. Bai Liyun observed his expression and was instantly enraged. He shouted at the half-saints who were holding Lu Xiaoyang down. "Are you deaf? Didn't you hear my order? Why aren't you attacking? That's right, cut off his tongue while you're at it." Hearing Bai Liyun's vicious order, the half-saints present couldn't help but shiver. They looked at Lu Xiaoyang on the ground with pity. Then, a half-saint with a scar on his face raised his butcher's knife, ready to torture Lu Xiaoyang on the spot. Yi Fei sighed. He understood that although many of the warriors from the North region had fortuitous encounters, not everyone could be like him. Fu Renjie and Lin Tianjiao, who were full of vigor and vigor. Many warriors from the North region were like Lu Xiaoyang. Even if they had fortuitous encounters, they could only improve their strength. They couldn't use them to transform into super geniuses or even top geniuses. After all, in the world of warriors, ordinary warriors were the majority. Those who could become top geniuses and peerless geniuses were always the minority. Boom! The half-saint with the butcher's knife was just about to swing it and torture Lu Xiaoyang. Suddenly, a terrifying aura appeared in the sky. That aura was like the arrival of an emperor. It was vast and mighty, like a terrifying divine mountain. The oppressive pressure caused the space to creak. This was merely the aura of Yi Fei's half-saint. However, in the hearts of the crowd, they felt as if they were facing a martial emperor or a quasi-emperor. Plop! The half-saint with the knife was instantly forced to kneel on the ground by this aura. The other half-saints who were holding Lu Xiaoyang's hands and feet also vomited blood. Just this aura was enough to cause these half-saints to be severely injured, completely losing their ability to fight. However, Lu Xiaoyang, who was in the middle of it, was not suppressed. Golden raindrops fell from the sky. All of them merged into his body. Lu Xiaoyang was shocked to discover that all of his injuries healed in the blink of an eye under this golden liquid. Lu Xiaoyang's face was filled with shock. He couldn't help but raise his head to look at the sky. The golden-armored martial sage's proud expression suddenly turned into horror. He quickly cupped his hands towards the sky and said in a trembling voice, "I wonder which martial monarch has come to my Bailey clan. I am Bailey. You can only speak while kneeling before me." Yi Fei interrupted this martial sage without waiting for him to finish speaking. At the same time, a vast aura formed an invisible sword mountain. With a loud boom, it shattered the golden-armored martial sage's golden armor, revealing his thin and fat body. Without the golden armor, this martial sage was no longer dignified. Instead, he was like a fowl whose feathers had been plucked, kneeling on the ground in horror. "Senior, please spare my life. If our battle has displeased Senior, we are willing to compensate." Bai Liyun had completely forgotten his identity as the crown prince. Almost as soon as he was sure that it was a martial monarch, he was so frightened that he took the initiative to descend from the sky and kneel on the ground. His speed stunned Yi Fei for a while, then he found it funny. He walked out of the clouds and looked down at Bai Liyun, who was kneeling on the ground. He shook his head and said, "You are not as good as Bailey Zhan. Back then, in a land of buried gods, he never begged for mercy from me until the moment he died. He is a true martial artist, a real opponent. You are just a bunch of fowls who use his power to intimidate others." To be honest, he was really disappointed with the Bailey clan. If the Bailey clan had not tried to kill Xiao Chao and put a bounty on his head, he would not have bothered to make a move against them. "Yi Fei, you are Yi Fei?" Lu Xiaoyang looked at the sky in disbelief. Yi Fei was still the same as when he left the northern region. He was wearing a black, purple gold robe. The only thing that had changed was Yi Fei's terrifying strength. Just his aura alone could easily suppress a martial sage. "Brother Lu, long time no see." Chapter 1393. Receiving a reward feeling Yi Fei's firm arms, Lu Xiaoyang was pleasantly surprised to find that he was not dreaming or hallucinating. The person in front of him was really Yi Fei. "Brother Yi, that's great. I finally see you again. Please save my sister." Lu Xiaoyang's voice became hoarse after the shock. Brother Lu, don't worry. Since I'm willing to show up, I'll definitely help you. However, didn't your sister refuse to let you go out to sea? Why are you here? Also, how were you discovered by these people? Yi Fei glanced at these warriors indifferently. With his current cultivation, even an ordinary glance was enough to make a half-saint feel a great power. Several seriously injured half-saints fainted on the spot. Only by Li Yun and the martial sage of the Bailey clan could barely hold on. This was not because they were strong or tough, but because Yi Fei had deliberately left them alive to make it easier to interrogate them. Lu Zhaoyang saw that the powerful martial sage and the arrogant crown prince of the empire were now kneeling on the ground. Not only were they unable to resist, but they could not even speak under Yi Fei's towering half-saint aura. They could only widen their eyes in fear. His heart was full of complicated feelings. Lu Zhaoyang was no longer the impulsive young master of the North region. On the contrary, after experiencing the dangers of the outer sea and witnessing the power of the Central Plains, Lu Zhaoyang knew very well how many geniuses there were in the Central Plains. Even in the North region, Yi Fei, who was respected as a holy king, was only an ordinary genius in the Central Plains. However, such a Yi Fei already had the power to easily suppress a martial sage. Lu Zhaoyang could not help but sigh and be shocked. Then, as if he had seen the sun and the hope of saving his sister, he hurriedly recounted his experience. Originally, my sister was determined not to let me go out to sea, especially after the news of the warriors who went out to sea 3 times in a row and the heavy casualties reached the North region. Many young warriors gave up the idea of leaving the North region. But at this time, some people who were thought to be dead returned, especially Chun Feng. Lu Zhaoyang mentioned a name that Yi Fei was very familiar with. It was Chun Feng, the most inconspicuous son of the Western Heavenly King of the Beiyang Kingdom. He was also one of the warriors from the northern region rescued by Yi Fei in the outer sea. After Yi Fei left the chaotic ocean for the Central Plains, Chun Feng, Jing Wushou, and the others chose to stay in the Divine Fist sect to cultivate. After a few years, when Chun Feng had stabilized Wu Jun's cultivation, he returned to the Northern Territory as Wu Jun. This immediately caused a huge commotion in the northern region. After all, Chun Feng's aptitude, when placed in the northern region, was at the very bottom. Yet, with such aptitude, after leaving the northern region, he unexpectedly broke through to the martial lord realm and became one of the peak powers in the northern region. Lu Zhaoyang and his sister, stimulated by this incident, finally decided to take the risk and leave the northern region to seek an opportunity to break through Wu Jun. So, after you leave the northern region, you should cultivate in the Divine Fist sect. Why did you come to the Central Plains? Yi Fei did not mean to look down on Lu Zhaoyang. It was because the warriors in the northern region generally had low aptitudes. Not everyone was like him, Fu Renjie and Lin Tianjiao, who could still compete with the geniuses of the Central Plains even after leaving the northern region. Chun Mingyao probably also suffered such a blow, so she gave up martial arts and changed to using her beauty to make a name for herself. In the end, she went astray. Only a small number of warriors like Lu Zhaoyang, who were not as good as the geniuses of the Central Plains and did not have a special bloodline, still persisted and cultivated silently. Most of them would be unknown for the rest of their lives, growing old and dying like ordinary people. However, there were very few lucky people like Lu Zhaoyang who had a fortuitous encounter and had the courage and possibility to continue pursuing martial arts. When these people returned to the northern region many years later, they all stood at the peak of the northern region. Lu Zhaoyang and his sister were like this. They did not have the amazing aptitudes of the Central Plains geniuses, but they had a firm determination to pursue martial arts. The most important thing was that Lu Zhaoyang and his sister had accidentally bought a strange scroll in the outer sea. Later, Lu Rian analyzed that it might be an ancient relic that had not yet been discovered, and its location was the closest to the Snow Wind Empire. Sister felt that this might be a great opportunity, so we took the risk and came to the Snow Wind Empire of the Central Plains. Lu Zhaoyang's face revealed a look of reminiscence, and there was some pain on his ferocious face. Fortunately, Sister was very smart. She brought me and finally found the relic, and even gave me a special bloodline. However, we were still careless. One time when we went out, this by Li Yun saw Sister's appearance and wanted to force Sister to be his concubine. When we resisted, Sister's space belt was taken away, and we accidentally exposed the secret of the relic's incomplete map. From then on, Bai Liyun brought experts and constantly chased after us. One of my eyes was lost because of this. In a battle 3 months ago, because there were too many enemies, Sister deliberately separated from me in order to lure away the pursuers. I didn't expect that in the end. We were still caught by the experts of the Bailey Empire. Lu Xiaoyang used his only intact left eye to stare at Bai Liyun. That gaze was like a tiger that wanted to eat someone. Yi Fei understood Lu Xiaoyang's feelings. If someone had caught his sister, he would definitely be crazier than Lu Xiaoyang. Don't worry, leave this matter to me, Yi Fei said solemnly. Thank you. Lu Xiaoyang's voice was hoarse, but he could not help but cry. If it wasn't for you this time, Sister and I would be finished. No need to thank me. It just so happens that I'm also going to the Bailey clan to receive my reward. Yi Fei shook his head indifferently. Not to mention that Lu Xiaoyang was an old friend. Just based on the fact that the Bailey Empire had chased after Xiao Chao, he would definitely not let this lackey of the legalists go. Yi Fei sent another stream of immortal energy for Lu Xiaoyang to quickly refine and heal his injured eye. Then, he finally looked at the kneeling Bai Liyun and the martial saint from the Bailey clan. Speak, Lu Ruyan. Where are you imprisoned? Yi Fei first asked the martial saint. Yi Fei, you're finished. We are the legalists. The martial saint roared in rage as soon as he got the chance to speak. He was a martial saint after all, but he could only speak while kneeling because of Yi Fei. He was so angry that the veins on his forehead were twitching. Soon, the martial saint's twisted veins suddenly burst. Yi Fei's sword chi had already pierced through the martial saint's forehead. Yi Fei turned to look at the crown prince, Bai Liyun, and said coldly, "What about you?" I said, "His sister is imprisoned in my crown prince residence. I didn't touch her. I beg you, let me go. I didn't go against you. The one who went against you was Bailey Zhan." Bai Liyun roared in fear. Chapter 1394. Here's the head. Yi Fei also frowned. It seems that other than Bailey Zhan, the Bailey family doesn't have a successor. Lead the way. Take me to your crown prince palace. What? Brother Yi, you want to go to the crown prince palace? Why don't we capture the crown prince and negotiate with the Bailey Empire? Lu Xiaoyang was refining the immortal energy. When he heard Yi Fei's words, he almost jumped up in fright. Although he knew that Yi Fei was very strong, Bailey Yun was still the crown prince of a country. Not far away was the imperial capital. Not only were there martial saints, there were also half-emperors. Lu Xiaoyang knew that Yi Fei had become very strong after joining the Zhenwu Sacred Academy. But he never thought that Yi Fei would really take him to the capital of an enemy country, especially when there was a crown prince in front of them. When Yi Fei subdued the crown prince and led the way, the scene could no longer be described as shocking. It was simply shocking. Even the imperial guards at the city gate would never have thought that the crown prince, who had always been arrogant and overbearing, would be so attentive to lead the way in front. Then, who exactly were the two people who were being led by him? Strange. Why do I feel that the black-robed young man looks familiar? Where have I seen him before? An imperial guard was puzzled. He was born and raised in the imperial capital. Quiet. Don't you see that the crown prince is leading the way? Those two are definitely not to be trifled with. Maybe they're even emperor-level experts from the Sacred Institute. Someone said, trying to show off his knowledge. In Zhongzhou, only the heaven-ranked disciples of the Sacred Academy could make the crown prince fawn over them. When Lu Xiaoyang heard these discussions, he secretly glanced at Yi Fei. He couldn't help but be shocked. He had been in Zhongzhou for a few years. Of course, he knew what it meant to be an emperor of the Sacred Academy. They were existences that were on the same level as the emperors of the other empires. I didn't expect Yi Fei to become a half-emperor and a heaven-ranked disciple in less than 10 years after joining the Sacred Academy. No wonder he's a saint king of the north, Lu Xiaoyang exclaimed. When he awakened his special bloodline, he was proud of himself. He thought that from then on, he would soar into the sky. Not to mention becoming the #1 in Zhongzhou. He would surpass Yi Fei, Fu Renjie, and Lin Tianjiao, those geniuses of the north. Until they met again, Lu Xiaoyang realized that his pride was not worth mentioning in front of Yi Fei. Fortunately, Yi Fei didn't know what Lu Xiaoyang was thinking. Otherwise, he would be depressed again. This time, he didn't have the intention to negotiate at all. When he saw Bai Liyun walking slowly in front of him, he didn't even think about it. Ignoring the shocked gazes of the passers-by, he directly kicked Bai Liyun. I'm warning you, don't play any tricks. I'm more familiar with the capital than you are. Yes, I'll lead the way. My crown prince residence is in front. Bai Liyun was very cooperative. Even though he was kicked in front of everyone, he still smiled. But in his heart, he was roaring like a devil. Yi Fei, Bai Liyun, swear that I'll kill you. If I can't, I'll take your surname. Roar. The crown prince residence was in front. At the entrance, there were even martial lord-level guards patrolling the area. At this moment, 2 experts of the 3rd level of the martial saint realm of the crown prince's manor walked out from within. Lu Xiaoyang subconsciously grew nervous as he prepared himself to fight with his life on the line should anything go wrong. Bai Liyun's face lit up with joy. Just as he was about to greet the 2 martial sages, he recalled how Yi Fei had instantly killed his 7th uncle. Bai Liyun forcefully suppressed his anger and asked the 2 martial sages in a deep voice, Zhang Si, Zhao Wu, you 2 dog slaves. Where did you lock up the woman that this crown prince captured last time? The 2 martial saints were stunned. Zhang Si on the left reacted quickly. He said with a cunning smile, Don't worry, crown prince. The new girl is clean and dressed up nicely. You can go and take care of her at any time. Very well. Bring her here. My 2 friends want to see her. Bai Liyun waved his hand impatiently. Friends? Zhang Si and Zhao Wu exchanged glances. They didn't say anything. Instead, they cupped their fists and said, Please wait. We'll bring her here. Saying this, Zhang Si and Zhao Wu turned around and walked into the crown prince residence. Chapter 1395. Unsheathing the sword in the imperial city of the Bailey Empire. Great Emperor Bailey was discussing with the crown prince of the Yongning Empire, Ningzhongshan. As the Snow Wind Empire was divided, the Bailey family and the imperial Tudorning's family had been fighting for 10 years. Neither side could destroy the other. Due to the recent rise of the true martial sacred institute, Ningzhongshan had also returned from the sacred institute and became the crown prince. Even with the support of the legalism school, Great Emperor Bailey did not dare to push too hard. At this moment, all the officials were arguing in the imperial palace. At this moment, Yi Fei's thunderous roar spread from the crown prince's residence to the imperial palace. All the cultivators in the imperial city were shocked. Inside the palace, countless civil and military officials were also looking at each other in shock. Someone actually chopped off Yi Fei's head and came to claim the reward. Haha, this is good news. It proves that my empire has a long history of martial arts. It's not something some small fry can offend. Great Emperor Bailey suddenly stood up. Bailey Zhen was the Bailey family's greatest hope and pride, but he was killed by Yi Fei. Many martial saints in the Bailey family dreamed of killing Yi Fei, but Yi Fei had already joined the true martial sacred institute. The Bailey family could not take revenge even if they wanted to. Later, they followed the orders of the legalism school and issued a bounty of 100 billion upper spiritual stones for Yi Fei's head. Great Emperor Bailey did not have much hope for that. But at this moment, the roar in the sky gave Great Emperor Bailey a huge surprise. Ningzhongshan, don't think that you have a right to talk to me just because you joined the Sacred Institute. Didn't Yi Fei also join the true martial Sacred Institute? Now, someone is here to bring his head to me. Order the officials to come out and welcome him. I want to personally thank this hero. Great Emperor Bailey was too excited. So much so that he didn't notice Ningzhongshan's stunned expression. the Beast King, and many of the Snow Wind Empire's civil and military officials had strange expressions when they heard the voice in the sky. Why did they feel that the voice was very familiar? It seemed to be Yifei's voice, but no official dared to remind him. Great Emperor Bailey walked out of the imperial court in high spirits. Many of the Bailey clan's martial sages who lived in the imperial palace also rushed over. Many young disciples cheered excitedly. This is great. Someone has finally killed that lowly commoner, Yifei. This is the result of opposing our Bailey royal family. Where's Yifei's head? Quickly throw it over. This young master wants to step on his head personally. Oof. A junior from the Bailey family, who was dressed in a brocade robe and had powdered face, was the first to rush up to Yifei. He spoke directly and bossily, ordering Yifei around. Yifei smiled indifferently and threw the crown prince's head to the other party. Step on it as you wish. Don't be polite. A mediocre slave can still do evil? The junior from the Bailey family wanted to curry favor with Great Emperor Bailey. He did not even look at the head in his hand. When Great Emperor Bailey came out, he had already rushed to the ground and threw the head on the ground. He stepped on it and then looked at Great Emperor Bailey proudly, waiting for Great Emperor Bailey's praise. He did not receive any praise. Instead, the martial sages from the Bailey clan gasped. Great Emperor Bailey's eyes were wide open as he roared in anger. Oh my God, that's not Yifei's head. That's the Crown Prince's head. The Crown Prince was killed by this person. He even dared to bring the Crown Prince's head over to receive the reward. Boom! The martial sages from the Bailey clan were all furious. Great Emperor Bailey looked at his son's head being stepped on. He was so shocked that he almost fainted on the spot. Then, great anger appeared on his body. Kill him. The martial sages rushed over after hearing the news and attacked at the same time. Dazzling martial arts lights turned the surrounding sky into a terrifying battlefield. Yifei stood in the battlefield and looked at the martial sages from the Bailey clan coldly. Then he attacked. The thing that appeared in the sky was not the white tiger, but the vermilion bird. The vermilion bird divine sword formed a huge flaming sword light and slashed forward, shattering all the martial arts lights. The rolling flames continued to move forward and engulfed all the martial sages from the Bailey clan. Bang! In the flames, the martial sages screamed and exploded. Then, charred corpses fell from the sky and landed all over the palace. Yifei, he's Yifei. All the officials looked pale as they looked at the black-robed young man in the sky. They felt like they were looking at the invincible titled martial sages who had won the Heaven Leaderboard 10 years ago. Yifei, he's Yifei. He killed Bailey Jun and my son. The Bailey clan's great emperor's eyes turned red. The cultivation of a half-martial emperor burst out from his body like a hurricane. Pass down my order. Gather the elites of the 10 prefectures in the imperial city and 100,000 soldiers. Whoever can kill this bastard will share the empire with me. Kill, kill, kill. As soon as the order was given, the imperial city was in an uproar. Countless soldiers and generals rushed over from all over the imperial city. They quickly formed a terrifying military formation in the huge square outside the palace. Killing intent surged in the military formation. The whistling martial arts lights shattered the sky and made the martial sages pale in comparison. Even a powerful half-martial emperor would be afraid in the face of a military formation made up of 100,000 elites. There was even a risk of death. However, Yifei did not seem to notice this. He looked up into the distance and into the depths of the palace. Bailey clan, is this all you can do? Didn't you want to kill me? Didn't you put a bounty of 100 billion spiritual stones on my head? Today, I've come personally. I'll give you the chance to kill me. My head is here. Who wants it? Boom! Ignoring the 100,000 soldiers, Yifei raised his hand again. The vermilion bird in the sky disappeared. A ferocious white tiger roared in the sky. Then, it turned into a white tiger divine, sword filled with killing intent. It flew past the military formation and slashed down. Its target was the Bailey clan's great emperor, who was surrounded by all the civil and military officials. Yi Fei wanted to take the great emperor's head in the midst of 100,000 soldiers. Lu Chuyang and Lu Ruyan happened to rush over from the crown prince's residence. They saw this unbelievable and crazy scene. There was someone who dared to charge into the imperial city alone with a sword to take the emperor's life. The civil and military officials looked at the young man in the sky. After the shock, they could not help but reveal deep fear in their eyes. Kill him. Whoever kills him will be given the title of king. I'll share the empire with you. The Bailey clan's great emperor was furious. He raised the military flag and gave the order. The 100,000 soldiers suddenly gathered in the military formation. Countless experts turned into flowing lights and rushed toward Yi Fei. Roar! At the same time, the white tiger roared. The loud roar shattered the void and tore the earth. It turned into endless sword sounds and shook the experts who rushed toward Yi Fei. Not even their bones remained. Chapter 1396. The Fall of the Empire. Kill him. You dare to kill the emperor with only one sword? Do you think the 100,000 soldiers of the imperial city are just decorations? Yi Fei, give me your life. I will use your head to claim the title of emperor and conquer the world for 1,000 years. Following great Emperor Bailey's command, the 100,000 soldiers in the imperial palace's plaza all gathered their true essences. Several tens of martial sages, several hundred half-sages, as well as the earth-shattering almighties, titled martial lords, and heaven-defying martial kings, all charged into the sky. In the end, even the army of 100,000 valiant soldiers slowly left the ground and rose into the air, surrounding Yi Fei in the sky and attempting to kill him. Among the soldiers, giant arrows turned into dragons and tore the sky apart. Dazzling chariots rumbled and charged into the sky. Vicious beasts suddenly roared. The generals on the backs of the beasts waved their spears and formed a forest of iron and blood. Lastly, the Bailey martial emperor let out a furious roar. He raised the flag in his hand and charged into the sky with the support of the officials like a shining star, aiming to kill Yi Fei. Instantly, the entire imperial palace was filled with thunderous roars. The entire imperial capital shook violently in the face of this massacre. Countless people were so scared that they fell to the ground, their bodies trembling. Is this all the Bailey clan has? You don't even have a single person who dares to fight against me. This is your misfortune, but also my fortune. Yi Fei's expression was calm, as if he did not see the terrifying army in front of him, nor the countless martial sacred realm and half-martial sacred realm experts around him. Suddenly, a layer of purple gold flames burned on his body. Then, they quickly formed a Taiji sphere to protect him. At that instant, Lu Chuyang and Lu Ruyan, who had just arrived, had the illusion that the person in front of them was no longer Yi Fei, but a demon, an incomparably resplendent purple gold sun. The attacks of the 100,000 soldiers and dozens of martial sacred realm experts were unable to break through the purple golden defense of the sun. Impenetrable, undefeatable. That's Yi Fei's famous martial art, purple gold Tai Chi. A martial sage from the Snow Wind Empire had personally witnessed Yi Fei using this Taiji to fight against Bailey Zhan. Now that he saw Yi Fei walking leisurely in the midst of 100,000 soldiers, unharmed and untainted by even a speck of dust, a deep sense of fear suddenly flashed through his eyes. Kill. His Tai Chi won't last long. Once his defense is broken, he'll be dead. Great Emperor Bailey charged over from afar with a flag in his hand. His military flag fluttered in the wind, and his killing intent soared. With the Emperor personally making a move, the morale of the crowd was greatly boosted. Everyone charged even more ferociously, and the light of the purple gold Taiji started shaking intensely. Yi Fei frowned. He understood that while the purple gold Taiji was powerful, it would not be able to last long against the encirclement of 100,000 cultivators. Passive defense. There would always be a moment when defense would be broken. The best defense was offense. the strongest attack, the most ruthless method. Sword. Yi Fei suddenly raised his hand and waved at the entire imperial palace. Boundless sword intent turned into a spiritual sense that covered every corner of the imperial palace. Instantly, all the cultivators with swords in the imperial palace felt their swords tremble. Soon, they broke free from their control. Countless sharp swords flew into the sky and hovered in front of Yi Fei. 10,000 swords returned to the origin, paying homage to the emperor. At this moment, Yi Fei was the emperor of the swords. He held the white tiger divine sword in his hand and slashed at the 100,000 soldiers in front of him. The dense swords in the sky had already turned into a terrifying rain of swords. They whistled as they flew out, smashing through the military formations and knocking down groups of elite soldiers. Roar! Finally, with a shocking tiger roar, the military formation formed by the 100,000 cultivators was slashed from head to toe by Yi Fei's sword. A terrifying crack appeared and a bloody path appeared. Demon, he is the king of demons. The majestic military formation instantly collapsed. Countless soldiers fell from the sky in fear. The Bailey Emperor was unwilling to give up. When he saw that the military formation was ineffective, he immediately led all the martial sages and half-sages to form a terrifying blood cloud and attack Yi Fei. The tens of thousands of sharp swords were all shattered by the martial sages' attacks. Yi Fei's expression did not change. However, his eyes became even colder. If you want to die with the Bailey family, then I will fulfill your wish. The white tiger disappeared, and a vermilion bird appeared in the sky. It turned into a terrifying rain of fire. The rain of fire turned into countless flaming swords. Raging flames filled the sky and burned the earth. Many sage-to-be's bodies were instantly set ablaze and burned to ashes. More martial sages were horrified, including Emperor Bailey. He held up his flag, which had been burnt to ashes, and retreated awkwardly. Yi Fei has become so powerful. Lu Ruyin and her brother looked at the scene in astonishment. Their hearts were trembling with fear. They could not believe that Yi Fei, who had been abandoned by the heavens, could reach such a height. He could face an entire empire alone. How terrifying was his combat strength? What kind of glorious results would that be? Bastard, don't be so arrogant. The hidden forces of the empire finally couldn't take it anymore. They were 12 half-emperor realm old men. They flew over from afar. Their faces were filled with anger, and a ferocious look flashed in their eyes. When they saw the Bailey Emperor retreating with his men, one of the old men shouted furiously, "Why are you retreating? Today's matter will only result in death. If he doesn't die, then the Bailey Empire will be completely destroyed. Kill this bastard and show those lowly people in the external endless sea who is the real master of the Central Plains." Another old man said coldly. Then, they did not say anything else. The 12 half-emperors attacked at the same time and attacked the 12 most fatal spots on Yi Fei's body. They had been waiting for a long time for this fatal attack. Yi Fei knew that these 12 half-emperors were the Bailey family's last trump card. Back then, it was these 12 people who ordered Bailey Zhen to kill Xiao Chao. A cold light flashed in Yi Fei's eyes. When the 12 half-emperors rushed towards him, he suddenly shouted and put away the vermilion bird divine sword. Then he activated the demon blood in his body. At this moment, he turned into a terrifying demon god. The 12 demon god slashes turned into 12 terrifying blood knives that tore through the void and shattered the sky. Puff! The head of a half-emperor. Suddenly, it rolled off his neck. Puff! Another scream was heard. Another half-emperor's body was cut in half by the blood knife. The other 10 half-emperors widened their eyes at the same time. Their heads rolled down from the sky and fell at the feet of the Bailey Emperor. How is this possible? The 12 strongest ancestors of the Bailey family could not even block one of his attacks. He is a demon. He is a demon. The Bailey Emperor's face was filled with fear. Then he raised his flag and roared, "Pass down my order! Fight to the death! Your Majesty, everyone has run away. 100,000 elites have run away. So have the civil and military officials. Even the juniors of your family are in the palace. They are packing up their belongings and preparing to escape. The Bailey Empire is finished. At this moment, a eunuch in the palace suddenly ran over and reported with his face covered in blood. Emperor Bailey looked around in confusion. Only then did he realize that 70% of the officials who had gathered around him had already scattered. There were even more officials and elite soldiers who were running away in fear, having completely lost the will to fight. He alone destroyed the empire that I built with 10 years of hard work. Puff! The Bailey Emperor was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of blood. Then he laughed bitterly. I have gained the empire and lost it. Why should I hate it? My family is destroyed, and the empire is in ruins. What's the use of my body? I might as well die too. Puff! Chapter 1397. Avoiding future troubles. The Emperor is dead. This Bailey Emperor is a man of integrity. Looking at the Bailey Emperor who was stabbed into the ground like a javelin, Yi Fei's heart trembled. He felt a little apologetic and a little emotional. However, an enemy was an enemy. There was no right or wrong between the two sides in this battle. There was only life and death. This had already been decided when the Bailey clan issued the bounty in accordance with the orders of the School of Legalism. Yi Fei, it's really you. No, I should call you your highness now. Disciple Ning Zhongshan pays his respects to the chosen saint. Before the battle ended, Ning Zhongshan led a group of officials from the Yongning Empire out of the imperial palace. After 10 years, the former #1 sword of the Snow Wind Empire had changed a lot. The most obvious change was Ning Zhongshan's aura. He had lost the sharpness of a sword and gained the dignity of a leader. Yi Fei looked at Ning Zhongshan and nodded. Then, he shook his head regretfully. Ning Zhongshan, I heard that you became a crown prince? Ning Zhongshan smiled bitterly. With my talent, it's hard for me to achieve anything in the martial Tao. Rather than despair in the sacred court, it's better to come back to the secular world and establish a hegemony. However, I will always be a disciple of the true martial sacred court. Ning Zhongshan's attitude was very humble. Especially after seeing Yi Fei destroy an empire alone, he became even more cautious. He didn't dare to act like a crown prince. Yi Fei didn't pay much attention to Ning Zhongshan. Instead, he sighed and pointed at the emperor who died with a military flag. He was a courageous emperor. You must follow the emperor's etiquette and bury him. Yes, chosen saint. Do you have any other orders? Ning Zhongshan nodded. When he saw the Bailey Emperor commit suicide, his heart was moved. No more. The Snow Wind Empire was destroyed because of me. Today, it will be reborn because of me. From now on, as the Crown Prince, you must treat the people well and nurture more martial artists to join the true martial sacred court. Yi Fei thought for a moment. Since he had nothing to add, he turned around and left the palace without looking back. He also left the Azura field that was littered with corpses. Seeing Yi Fei's casual attitude towards the Crown Prince, an official of Yongning Empire said with dissatisfaction, Crown Prince, since Yi Fei killed all the half-step emperors of the Bailey family, why didn't he kill the other half-step emperors of the Bailey family? With his strength, he could have completely destroyed the Bailey family and saved us a lot of trouble. Shut up. Ning Zhongshan glared fiercely at the official, then sighed and said, Yi Fei killed his way into the imperial city alone with his sword. This is his bravery. He did not vent his anger on the old, weak, women, and children of the Bailey family. This is his benevolence. He is a pure martial artist. But I am different. I have already given up on the path of martial arts. I cannot give up on the path of the emperor. If the Holy Son cannot bear to do it, and disdains to do it, then I will do it. Men, pass down my order. Seal off the imperial palace and kill all the people of the Bailey family. Leave no one alive. This will not only eliminate the root of the problem for the saint, but also prevent future troubles for the Yongning Empire. Ning Zhongshan's face was filled with killing intent. Then, he began to walk towards the remaining officials to win their hearts. At the same time, Yi Fei brought Rian and her brother out of the imperial city to a restaurant outside the city. The three of them sat down and ordered some food and wine. Yi Fei poured a cup of wine and raised it. "Brother Liu, Miss Liu, cheers to our reunion. No, we should be the ones toasting you. Without you, Chaoyang would have died a long time ago. I wouldn't be able to drink with you here." Ruyan Liu raised her glass. Her eyes were filled with gratitude and surprise. At this moment, Liu Xiaoyang finally came back to his senses from the magnificent battle. His injured eyes had recovered, and the scars on his face had all disappeared. This also made his originally gloomy personality become much more cheerful. Unlike Rian, who was reserved in front of Yi Fei, Liu Xiaoyang was still the same as before. He warmly clinked his cup with Yi Fei and then sighed helplessly. "Sigh, comparisons are odious. I thought I could surpass you after awakening my special bloodline. Who would have thought that I, a warrior from the northern region, would one day become the saint of the Saint Academy? Brother Yi, you've kept me in the dark." After that, Liu Xiaoyang's eyes flashed with a hint of bitterness. Yi Fei was speechless. At the same time, he looked at Ruyan curiously. "Now that you've come to the central province, what are your plans?" Ruyan stroked her hair and said, "We came to the central province mainly to find the relic. If possible, we'd like to invite you to explore the relic with us." "Relic? Didn't you already explore it?" Yi Fei was a little confused. The two siblings looked at each other and smiled bitterly. Ruyan said, "The relic is very powerful. With our strength, we could only explore the periphery. It's already very dangerous. If we go deeper, we won't be able to do it. Yi Fei, you're different. You have the strength. If you can enter the relic, you'll definitely gain more than us." Liu Xiaoyang also interrupted. "Yi Fei, you saved us. We don't have anything to repay you. We only know about the relic. If you're willing, we can take you there. We can also follow you and gain some benefits." Rian also nodded seriously. Her limpid eyes looked at Yi Fei expectantly. Obviously, the two siblings had already discussed and decided to use the relic to repay his kindness. If Yi Fei rejected them now, they would be disappointed. In fact, after seeing Liu Xiaoyang's strange shadow martial arts, Yi Fei was already curious about the relic. Now that he had the chance to explore it, he naturally wouldn't reject it. After a simple meal, the two siblings brought Yi Fei to catch up with each other as they hurried to the relic they discovered. What surprised Yi Fei was that the relic wasn't in the deep mountains or old forests. Instead, it was hidden in a deserted house in the middle of the city. It felt like a haunted house. This made Yi Fei even more curious about the relic. Not long after, the news of Yi Fei single-handedly destroying the 100-mile empire spread throughout the central province through various channels. Once again, it caused an uproar in the 4 sacred courtyards. Yi Fei is really good at causing trouble. I heard that he not only killed the saints of the 3 academies in the Dragon Head realm, but even the quasi-emperors of the 3 academies were killed by him. That's old news. The latest news is that the demon Yi Fei defeated the goddess Lu Qing in the true martial sacred academy. It's said that he even forced her to sleep with him. Sleep with him? She's such a good cabbage. How could she be tainted by this demon? This beast, this scum. Is there no one in the 3 great sacred academies who can defeat him? Defeat him? Do you think that Yi Fei is called the demon saint for nothing? Not long ago, Yi Fei single-handedly destroyed the 100-mile empire. SSS, who can stop this demon Yi in the future? Chapter 1398. Reactions from all sides. Tian Fa world. Originally a small world of the Heavenly Thunder sacred sect, it had now become the foundation and heritage of the Liu family. Although the Liu family had lost 50 spirit veins to redeem Lu Qing. However, with the remaining hundreds of spirit veins of the Heavenly Thunder sacred sect, the Liu family did not collapse because of this setback. On the contrary, this loss greatly stimulated the self-esteem of the Liu family's disciples as a quasi-emperor family. Everywhere, there were disciples of the Liu family who were cultivating diligently and had declared that they would take revenge on the true martial sacred academy and kill Yi Fei. Only Lu Qing had been as quiet as ever since she returned to the Lu family, as if her defeat to Yi Fei had not dealt any blow to this goddess. In just half a year, Lu Qing had not only advanced by leaps and bounds, but her eyes also revealed a hint of invincible belief. This was the most terrifying thing about peerless geniuses. Many martial artists who had fallen would find it difficult to get back up again. Even if they did, it would take a long time and countless training to rebuild their invincible belief. But peerless geniuses were different. Even if they fell, as long as their talent was still there, they could get back up with a pat of the dust and become stronger and more determined. Lu Qing's situation was like this. On the surface, she seemed to have lost, but only a few people, such as the Tian Fa Quasi-Emperor, knew that Lu Qing had undergone a complete transformation after this defeat. She had become calmer, and her martial will had also become more determined. But this calmness and determination, when Lu Qing returned to the Divine Martial Sacred Academy and accidentally released her divine sense, heard the disciples discussing the latest news about Yi Fei, and heard that Yi Fei had forced her to serve him in bed, she completely went crazy and flew into a rage. "Ah, Yi Fei, I'm going to kill you." Lu Qing felt that this was the only way to prove her innocence. But she didn't know that when her furious appearance fell into the eyes of the disciples, many of them, including Lu Feng and the other heaven-class disciples, had miserable expressions. Many of them were even inconsolable. Heavens, the rumors are actually true. Demon Yi really forced the goddess to serve him in bed. Otherwise, how could such a quiet person like the goddess be so angry? Heaven, are you blind? Even a toad can eat swan meat. Where is that Yi Fei? I'm going to fight him to the death right now. Give me back my goddess. Lu Qing was stunned as she looked at the crowd of excited disciples who believed that she had lost her virginity. She was so angry that her body trembled. The invincible belief that she had recovered with great difficulty almost collapsed because of this. Goddess immediately decided that killing Yi Fei would be too easy. Only by chopping him into pieces would she be able to vent her frustrations. Lu Qing returned to her goddess peak angrily. Zhao Yu also became the new holy maiden of the heavenly Tao Sacred Academy under the gazes of everyone. However, she didn't have the Sage Pagoda in her hands. She only had an emperor-ranked weapon given to her by the headmaster. Regarding this, Zhao Yu was somewhat depressed. What was even more depressing was that when the headmaster rewarded her with the emperor-ranked weapon, he also arranged for countless beautiful men to cultivate around her peak. These beautiful men were all carefully selected by the heavenly Tao Sacred Academy. Regardless of character or aptitude, they were all top-notch. Clearly, after the fiery dragon failed to capture Yi Fei, the heavenly Tao Sacred Academy didn't give up. They used another method, wanting to make Zhao Yu fall in love with someone else. From there, she would completely forget about Yi Fei and make up her mind to kill Yi Fei. The old Empress Dowager was the main force behind this matter. It was said that ever since she came to the central province and discovered that Zhao Yu still couldn't forget about Yi Fei, the old Empress Dowager had to use her chopsticks to poke the bottom of her bowl 3 times before shouting 3 times, "Yi Fei, die early." Yi Fei, scram. Even if you die, don't come and harm my Yua. If she didn't shout like this, the old Empress Dowager would be too disgusted to eat. At this moment, taking advantage of the fact that Zhao Yu just became the saintess and might be in a good mood, the old Empress Dowager hurriedly brought the most outstanding and most handsome disciple of the heaven realm to see if he could move Zhao Yu's indifferent heart. "Yuer, this is Huozhan Tian. His father is the fiery dragon, Quasi-Emperor. You two should get to know each other." The old Empress Dowager winked at Huozhan Tian, telling him to make good use of this opportunity. Huozhan Tian was indeed a troublemaker. Zhao Yu wasn't interested in talking about martial arts. When they talked about romance, Zhao Yu was indifferent. Huozhan Tian suddenly thought of something and laughed. "Saintess, I heard a joke recently. It said that goddess Lu Qing went to the real martial sacred academy to challenge Yi Fei but was defeated. She was even forced by Yi Fei to serve him every night and wash her face with tears. Don't you think this joke is funny?" With that, Huajiantian burst into laughter. He felt that this matter was too ridiculous. A goddess losing to someone abandoned by the heavens was akin to an adult being defeated by a child. It was hilarious and impossible for such a thing to happen. Serve him in bed. Zhao Yu didn't laugh. She suddenly glanced at Huajiantian. Huajiantian was secretly happy. He thought he had finally caught the attention of the beauty. Maybe he could even win Zhao Yu's heart. He cheered up. Saintess, I'll tell you the details. Get lost. Zhao Yu's words were soft, but the whole hall was suddenly filled with a terrifying chill. Huajiantian and the mountain were instantly frozen into a thick iceberg. At the top of the iceberg, Zhao Yu's snow-white hair was burning like fire. Serve him in bed? Good, very good. Zhao Yu clenched her teeth. The words she squeezed out were filled with sparks. No one knew what Huajiantian had experienced that day. The disciples and emperors of the heavenly Tao Sacred Academy could only watch in fear as the ice and snow engulfed the entire academy, causing the emperors to shiver from the cold. After that, a terrifying flame appeared, burning like the sun, roasting the entire heavenly Tao Sacred Academy. It was as though there was a layer of invisible fire burning within the academy. Huajiantian and the beautiful male disciples who were ordered to pester Zhao Yu were all like red-hot rats. They cried and screamed as they ran away from the mountain. From then on, the mountain where Zhao Yu was called a forbidden zone. No male disciple, including martial emperors, dared to take a step into it. Some people were angry, while others were worried. Compared to the 4 sacred academies who were gossiping about Yi Fei, the head of the FA school was more furious about Yi Fei's extermination of the Bailey Empire. So the FA school elders couldn't believe it. They looked at the informant and said, "What? Yi Fei single-handedly exterminated an empire? How could a piece of trash like him have the ability to do that?" You must have heard wrongly. Did the true martial sacred academy secretly make a move? Find a disciple of the Bailey family. We want to ask him personally. Elder, the Bailey family is no more. Yi Fei was kind enough to only kill the martial saint of the Bailey family. However, Ning Zhongchen was vicious and merciless. He exterminated the entire Bailey family. Not even a dog was left, the informant said in fear. Many of the FA school elders' expressions changed. They were furious at the same time. Preposterous. Who doesn't know that the Bailey family is a dog we raised? Before beating a dog, you have to look at its master. The disciples of the true martial sacred academy actually dared to exterminate the Bailey family? Chapter 1399. F.A. Ehai's Transformation. Yes, destroy the true martial sacred academy. There wasn't just one elder from the legalism faction who was clamoring. Half of the legalism faction's elders were shouting the same thing. They were all relatively young martial emperors and represented the core strength of the legalism faction. The ones who remained silent were mostly older martial emperors. They had more experience and were able to see things from a long-term perspective. Family head, I don't think it's time to start a war with the true martial sacred academy. As long as the Grand Dean isn't dead, it'll be very difficult for us to destroy the true martial sacred academy, no matter how many people we send. Furthermore, the Demon Man Hall has returned from outer space. We have to be on guard, an old martial emperor elder said as he stood up. His words immediately made the faces of the clamoring young martial emperors turn ugly. If the destruction of the 100-Mile Empire had only made them feel angry, then the revival of the Demon Man Hall and the return of the Netherworld Bone ship from outer space had made all of the Quasi-Emperor clans feel an enormous threat. The young family head of the legalism faction rubbed his head and said, "It's best that we put the matter of the true martial sacred academy aside. There's a demon god hidden in Yi Fei's body. Anyone who makes a deal with a demon god won't have a good ending. The Demon Man Hall, on the other hand, is a target that all of us Quasi-Emperor clans must eliminate. A few of the martial emperor clans have already given us orders." Orders from the martial emperor clans? The words of the family head of the legalism faction caused the expressions of all the elders to change. Although quasi-emperor clans seemed very impressive in the Middle Continent, they were like eggs and stones in front of the martial emperor clans. Damn it! Back then, when our ancestors betrayed the Hall of Life and Death, the martial emperor clans also made a move. Now that the Demon Man Hall has returned from the dead, it's fine if they don't make a move, but they actually want us quasi-emperor clans to be their cannon fodder. A shrewd elder from the legalism faction had already guessed the martial emperor clan's intentions. However, knowing was one thing. The martial emperor clans were so large that they had already occupied an entire planet. This wasn't a power that quasi-emperor clans could provoke, unless these quasi-emperor clans could give birth to a living martial emperor. While the upper echelons of the legalism faction were worried, in the small world of the legalism faction, a few disciples of the legalism faction's branch families were surrounding Chun Mingyao. Chun Mingyao was annoyed, but she couldn't refuse. After all, Lawless Fa was already dead. If she didn't use her beauty to find a backer, she might be kicked out of the school of legalism. However, the direct disciples of the school of legalism didn't accept her because she used to be Fa Wudao's woman. As for the side disciples of legalism, it was Chun Mingyao's turn to look down on them. Chun Mingyao suddenly felt that she was neither too high nor too low. She could only deal with the flies around her while thinking about her future. Suddenly, her beautiful eyes lit up when she saw a legalist half-step king that she had never seen before walk in from outside the small world. Although the half-step king was a little old, the bloodline aura he exuded was very similar to Fa Wudao's. This kind of aura was usually emitted by a young master of the legalist school with a powerful bloodline. Chun Mingyao's eyes lit up even more. She was so focused on the martialist that she forgot to speak to the branch family disciples. The faces of the branch family members were filled with anger. When they saw that Chun Mingyao wasn't staring at a direct family member, nor a branch family member, but Fa Ehai, the half-step emperor's servant, they became even angrier. They were so furious that they ignored the bloodline aura coming from Fa Ehai's body. One of the branch family disciples even deliberately walked over and blocked Fa Ehai's path. Fa Wuming, what are you? Fa Ehai was stunned. Before he could ask, a mouthful of saliva was spat on his face. Dog slave, how dare you call me by my name? I'm in a bad mood right now. Kneel down immediately and bark 3 times for me to hear. Fa Wuming was deliberately humiliating Fa Ehai. He wanted Chun Mingyao to know that she was staring at a mere slave and that she should give up as soon as possible. If it had been 3 months ago, Fa Ehai wouldn't have been able to resist Fa Wuming's humiliation. He wouldn't have dared to resist either. He would have just endured the humiliation and knelt down to bark 3 times. However, things are different now. Yi Fei had given Fa Wudao's special bloodline to Fa Ehai, turning him from an ordinary half-emperor to a super genius. Now that he was suddenly spat on in front of everyone, Fa Ehai, who had the mindset of a servant, was slightly stunned. However, when he felt the sticky liquid on his face, Fa Ehai became furious. Fa Wuming, you're courting death. Dog slave. How dare you scold me? If you don't kneel down, I'll make you eat shit. Do you believe me? Fa Wuming became even more spirited when he saw that the beauty was looking at him. He even kicked Fa Ehai to the ground like he was kicking a dog. Fa Ehai was completely enraged. Almost at the same time that Fa Wuming kicked him, he instinctively activated his fate will bloodline. A blood-red fate wheel appeared in the sky and crashed down. Boom! Of course, Fa Wuming was smashed into pieces and died an unnatural death. I killed someone. I actually killed a young master of the collateral branch. After his anger, Fa Ehai's expression was suddenly filled with fear. After all, he had been a servant of the legalism sect for more than 70 years. Many of his habits were already deeply ingrained in his bones. It wasn't something that could be changed in a short time. Fa Wuming's tragic death had also frightened the remaining branch family members. However, when they saw Fa Ehai's panicked expression after killing someone, as well as Fa Ehai's identity as a servant, they immediately became furious. Fa Ehai, you dog slave. Not only did you betray your master, you actually dared to kill him? Guards, a slave is rebelling. Quickly kill this slave. These branch family disciples all shouted loudly. They purposely shouted very loudly, hoping to attract the martial emperor's attention. After all, the matter of Fa Ehai killing Fa Wuming with a single move had caused them to be secretly shocked. Inside the palace, the leader of the legalism sect naturally heard the commotion outside. He immediately frowned and said angrily, "Who is making such a ruckus? Don't you know that the ancestor is in seclusion to heal his injuries? Capture him and punish him severely." Yes, a martial emperor of the legalism sect quickly walked out of the palace. However, this martial emperor of the legalism sect quickly rushed in with a face full of shock and disbelief. "Leader, something big has happened. Something big has happened." "What has happened? Has the human demon palace started attacking our quasi-emperor families?" The leader of the legalism sect stood up in shock. "It's not the human demon palace, it's Fa Ehai." The martial emperor gasped for breath. He was so excited that he couldn't speak properly. Fa Ehai, the half-emperor of the collateral branch who was struck by corpse accumulation nether chi. He can't even awaken his bloodline. What can he do? The leader of the legalism sect still had some impression of Fa Ehai. Chapter 1400. Haunted House, what? Fa Ehai has awakened a bloodline, and a high-grade one at that. Just like the panting martial emperor, when the other elders heard the news, half of them were dumbfounded, while the other half were dumbfounded. Special bloodlines were divided into 4 grades: low grade, mid-grade, high-grade, and perfect. A low-grade bloodline could turn a martialist into a special genius, giving them the ability to fight across 6 grades. A mid-grade bloodline could turn a martialist into a super genius, giving them the ability to fight across 7 grades. A high-grade bloodline was 8 grades, and a perfect bloodline was 9 grades. For example, Zhao Yu's Ice-Fire Phoenix bloodline was a perfect bloodline, so her cultivation was like a rocket. Fa Wu Dao was slightly worse, as he only had a high-grade bloodline. Even so, he was greatly valued by the legalists and became the first young master, developing an arrogant and despotic personality. At the same time, it was said that there were even more mysterious bloodlines above perfect bloodlines, but they could only appear in the bodies of exceptional geniuses, such as Lu Qing's Lightning bloodline and Di Fan's Sage bloodline. This was also why many legalist martial emperors were dumbfounded when they heard that Fa Ehai had awakened a high-grade bloodline. However, when they came back to their senses, many martial emperors were shaken and shouted excitedly, "The heavens haven't forsaken us! Haha! Fa Wu Dao is dead, but we still have Fa Ehai. Pass down my orders. Immediately abolish Fa Ehai's status as a servant. From now on, he will be a direct disciple of the legalists, the first young master. Quickly let that slave, Fa Ehai, know. Let him come see me." Just like that, Fa Ehai, who had originally been a servant of the legalists, quickly changed from a servant to a master. As for the disciples of the legalists who had provoked Fa Ehai, they fell into an abyss, going from half a master to a servant. This was the cruelty of quasi-emperor clans, as well as the cruelty of the martial world. All rules could be broken with power. Who would have thought that the children I rescued from the Star Moon Holy Land would be taken to the outer seas by Hu Yin Chao and establish the divine Yi sect? At the thought of these children worshipping him like a god, Yi Fei felt uncomfortable all over. He had already decided that when he returned to the northern region, he would definitely pay divine Yi sect a visit. By the way, it's not just Yi Shinzong. When we left the chaotic ocean, I heard from Jing Wushou that they are preparing to set up a branch of the Taishan Holy Land in the outer sea. It's easier to take care of the warriors of the northern region who come out to train. It said that the Divine Fist sect is also planning to merge into the Taishan Holy Land. Lu Chaoyang revealed another piece of breaking news. Yi Fei was surprised by the news. He had not expected that Jing Wushou and the others had not gone to the central continent in the past 10 years. Instead, they had established a branch of the Taishan Holy Land in the chaotic ocean. However, this was also a good thing. After all, the Taishan Holy Land was a sect that he had joined. Even though he had grown stronger and left the Taishan Holy Land, Yi Fei had never forgotten the people and things inside. Luo Shi, Wang Bai, Zhao Yu. There was also the dead 10th prince, Lin Sun, and Yang Xiao, who had stayed in the Taishan Holy Land. These were all his friends. When he returned this time, he had to take a good look at them. Strange. After walking for so long, where did you find the relic? Yi Fei's current location was a remote market in a remote town in the Snow Wind Empire. Although there was a night market here at night, because the town's population was small, not only was it not lively, but it would also be scary if someone jumped out at night. Lu Rian appeared calm. She smiled and pointed to an abandoned house in front of them. The relic is inside. To tell you the truth, when we first found this place, we were all so shocked. Who would have thought that there would be an ancient relic hidden in this town? If we hadn't been patient, we would have missed the opportunity here. Why? Is there something special about this relic? Yi Fei looked at the abandoned house with interest. He found that other than it being a little desolate, there was nothing noteworthy. Even the Xiao Chao did not detect any spiritual energy fluctuations. Lu Xiaoyang leaned over mysteriously and said, Yi Fei, this place is very strange. This was originally a haunted house. It is said that people often saw shadows moving around here at night. Because of this, many cultivators were alerted and came to investigate. In the end, they found nothing. However, people often say that there are ghosts here. As time passed, even stray cats and dogs did not dare to stay here. Do you know why? Afraid of ghosts? Yi Fei said, Nonsense, they're afraid of being skinned. It is said that all stray cats and dogs that came here at night would be skinned and hung on the wall in the morning. Some people even heard the sound of shackles being used at night. However, many powerful people came to investigate, but they did not find any clues. Over time, this place was called an ominous place. No one came here. Back then, my sister and I hesitated for a few days before we mustered up the courage to enter. Lu Xiaoyang became more and more terrifying as he spoke, especially when he deliberately stood in the shadows when he spoke. He used a shadow bloodline to create the shadows of animals being skinned. Yi Fei knew that Lu Xiaoyang was holding back and wanted to scare him. He had passed through mountains of corpses and seas of blood. He had even killed the blood demon god emperor. How could he be afraid of a mere ghost? However, Xiao Chao was still hiding in the beastmark space. While Yi Fei and the other two were talking, Xiao Chao pricked up her ears and eavesdropped. She was listening with great interest when Lu Xiaoyang suddenly told her a horror story in the middle of the night. He even deliberately made it look like an animal was being skinned. Lu Xiaoyang's original intention was to scare Yi Fei. This was because when Lu Xiaoyang and his sister first came here, they were already frightened by the story and the strangeness of the house. Yi Fei had also been scared since he was young. He was already numb to it. Instead, it was Xiao Chao who heard such a strange horror story for the first time. The more she heard, the more scared she became. Just as Xiao Chao was engrossed in listening, Lu Xiaoyang suddenly started meowing like a cat again. This time, Xiao Chao was completely enraged. Without another word, she crawled into the small bed of spiritual herbs. Xiao Chao was afraid that it would be uncomfortable to hide alone, so she pulled the dragon turtle with all her strength. The poor dragon turtle was grabbed by the neck and tail by Xiao Chao. It could not move or breathe. It almost suffocated to death on the spot. It immediately hated Lu Xiaoyang to the core. It was waiting for an opportunity to take revenge. However, Lu Xiaoyang did not know that. Seeing that he could not scare Yi Fei, he became more and more excited. Yi Fei could see that Xiao Chao was trembling in the spiritual grass bed. The dragon turtle was rolling its eyes and almost suffocating to death. He could not help but look at Lu Xiaoyang sympathetically. This guy was indeed a scammer. It was okay to scam him, but the point was that even the vengeful dragon turtle was scammed by him. All right, Xiaoyang, stop talking. It's almost midnight. Let's go in quickly. If we miss it, we will have to wait until next month to enter the relic. In the end, Lu Ruyin could not stand it anymore and stopped Lu Xiaoyang. Otherwise, even if Yi Fei was not scared, she would be scared. Now, Lu Ruyin was hugging Yi Fei's arm. She was so scared that she almost forgot to let go. Yi Fei was so engrossed in the story that he did not even react. However, when he saw Lu Xiaoyang smiling and winking at him, Yi Fei was so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. He had tried so hard to defend himself, but he was still scammed by this scammer. I really met the wrong person. Chapter 1401. Black Prison. The courtyard wasn't large. In front of it was a shop, behind it was a courtyard for rest, and there were 3 other courtyards. However, after being exposed to the elements, most of the rooms here had rotted away. The roof was overgrown with weeds, and from the large cracks in the bricks on the ground, there were patches of grass that had already withered and yellowed. Yi Fei released his divine perception and scanned the courtyard a few times. He couldn't even find the simplest mystic realm, let alone spiritual energy. He couldn't help but look at Lu Ruyin suspiciously. Could there be some special restriction here that can hide from divine perception? Lu Ruyin looked at Yi Fei in surprise. She let go of Yi Fei's arm and explained, "There's indeed a restriction here that can isolate all divine perception. Only on this day of the month, when the moon must appear, will the restriction loosen and that space will appear." Lu Xiaoyang said proudly, "It's my credit that we were able to discover that space. Back then, my sister was so scared that she didn't dare to enter. I was the one who finally gathered my courage and pulled her in. Coincidentally, that day was when the moon was full. Then we felt that our shadows had all disappeared from the courtyard, just like now. At this moment, the moon was high in the sky. The bright moonlight shone on the deserted courtyard, making this haunted courtyard seem even more sinister and depressing. What was even stranger was that following Lu Xiaoyang's words, Yi Fei realized that the shadows of the 3 of them had all disappeared. Standing here, he actually had the illusion that he had become a ghost. No matter how thick-skinned Yi Fei was, when faced with such a situation, he still felt a chill down his spine. With his current strength, to be able to silently erase his shadows, the restriction of this ruin was not only mysterious, but also very strange. That ghostly shadow has appeared. Yi Fei, sister, let's hurry in before it's too late." Lu Xiaoyang suddenly shouted again. That voice almost made Yi Fei's scalp go numb. Then, he saw that there was indeed an additional black shadow in the courtyard. It stretched from the ground all the way to the dry well in the middle of the courtyard. Then, Lu Xiaoyang rushed straight to the well and jumped in. Those who didn't know better would think that Lu Xiaoyang was possessed by a ghost and jumped into the well to commit suicide. That's probably the reason for the rumor of ghosts. Yi Fei secretly shook his head. He understood that the dry well might be the entrance to the relic. When he saw Ri and Lu jump in quickly, Yi Fei also jumped in. The dry well was not deep. It was only 3 to 4 meters deep. However, when the 3 of them jumped into the well, they fell for almost 5,000 meters, but they didn't feel the bottom. Not long after they fell into the well, the bright moon in the sky suddenly disappeared, and the shadow in the courtyard also disappeared. The entire courtyard once again became quiet and desolate. Faintly, one could hear the sound of people in shackles walking in the courtyard. It was extremely strange. This was also the reason why the town treated this place as an ominous place. No one could tell where the black shadow and the sound of the shackles came from. Moreover, the way the relic opened was also strange. It had to be opened once a month at midnight, when the moon appeared. This was also the reason why many warriors came to investigate, but found nothing. These conditions were too coincidental. In the past, the warriors either missed the time or the full moon. They could not find the real reason for the relic's haunting. At that time, Lu Xiaoyang was also careless. When he suddenly saw the ghost shadow, he rushed over without thinking. In the end, he did not bump into the ghost shadow. Instead, he accidentally fell into the dry well. It was then that he luckily discovered the biggest secret of the house. He fell for almost 100,000 meters. Only then did Yi Fei see a faint light in the dark passage of the dry well. It was like the eyes of two ghosts, coldly staring at them. Then he felt that he had reached the bottom. Looking up, the three of them had already arrived at a dark and deep underground space. The eyes of the ghosts were fist-sized emeralds. They were embedded in the surrounding walls, and there were also countless ferocious faces of the ghosts painted on them. Just one look was enough to make one shudder. However, Lu Xiaoyang was careless. He ignored these ferocious ghosts and continued forward. Lu Ruyin was also used to this. After walking for a while, a large dungeon suddenly appeared in front of them. There were prison cells on both sides. They were all made of special metal and had all sorts of mysterious talisman scripts on them. Is this Millennium Frost Iron? Yi Fei had obtained the Zhu clan's blacksmithing outline, so he had a certain level of insight into blacksmithing. He quickly saw that these prison cells were made by a blacksmith master. Although Millennium Frost Iron was not as precious as Millennium Frost Iron, the prison cells made of this material were indestructible. Anyone below Martial Monarch would not be able to destroy them. At this moment, most of these prison cells were empty. However, Yi Fei saw traces of skeletons in some of them. Most of these skeletons had already decayed. Some of them still gave off a faint light, hiding the might of heaven and earth. These are the skeletons of martial sages. The last time we came in, we were in a hurry. We didn't take many with us. We were going to sell them, but Bai Liyun saw us and found out. That's why he chased after us. Lu Ruyin said, "These skeletons are useless to me. We have plenty of time now. You can take them as you wish." Yi Fei was not interested in these skeletons. Lu Ruyin and Lu Xiaoyang's eyes lit up. They were both absolute ground almighties. They needed to comprehend the might of heaven and earth. Since Yi Fei did not want them, they would not be polite. They immediately seized the opportunity and put all the skeletons into their space belts. Yi Fei, with our strength, we can only enter the first floor of the Black Prison. The second floor has bone demons. We can't pass it. We can only rely on you, Lu Ruyin reminded him. Bone demons? Yi Fei's heart sank. Bone demons were all dangerous places. No wonder Lu Ruyin and Lu Xiaoyang invited him here. This relic was obviously not a place where absolute ground realm warriors could explore. Even reaching heaven realm martial sages would be at risk of dying here. Fortunately, he had already reached the half-emperor realm. He could be considered as an expert. He was not particularly worried about the dangers of the Black Prison. After Lu Ruyin and Lu Xiaoyang cleared the first floor of the Black Prison, Yi Fei immediately took the lead and walked to the second floor of the Black Prison. There were no cells on the second floor of the Black Prison. All kinds of horrible torture instruments were hung on the walls. Some were piercing the ribs, some were skinning the skin. Many of the instruments were stained with black blood. Even after tens of thousands of years, this place was still filled with an oppressive smell of blood. Back then, I was greedy. I ran to the second floor without clearing the first floor. In the end, I alarmed the bone demons and almost killed my sister. Lu Xiaoyang walked carefully. It's okay. It's not the first time you've tricked me. Leave the bone demons to me. You just focus on finding treasures. Yi Fei said indifferently. Lu Xiaoyang blushed. Brother Yi, you don't have to be so direct. Roar. Chapter 1402. Shadow Warrior, be careful. The bone demons are coming out. Retreat to the back. Yi Fei's expression turned serious. He had killed many bone demons before and was very familiar with this kind of roar. He immediately strode forward. Lu Ruyin and her brother hurriedly retreated. They were only absolute ground realm experts. If they encountered the bone demons, even a martial sage would be killed by them, let alone them. After all, those who could form bone demons were powerful martial sages when they were alive. Among them, martial emperors had the highest chance of forming bone demons after they died. Roar! Yi Fei took a few steps forward. In the depths of the Black Prison, there were already more than 10 golden bone demons. They sensed the aura of a living person and rushed out. The golden bone spikes turned into whistling golden balls of light and stabbed at Yi Fei rapidly. Upon closer inspection, the arms of these bone demons seemed to have been carefully polished. They were as sharp as daggers. These are definitely not normal bone demons. They are man-made. Yi Fei's expression became rather solemn. He became even more interested in the black prison hidden in the marketplace. He ignored the bone demon's dagger arms that were comparable to sacred artifacts. Instead, he threw out a punch, colliding with a bone demon's dagger. Bang! The golden bone arm of the bone demon was smashed into pieces. Then, the bone demon's skull was also penetrated by the punch. The soul fire inside collapsed and was completely destroyed. Ding ding dang. A dark red stone fell out of the destroyed bone demon. Yi Fei thought that it was the bone demon's soul essence. When he picked it up, he realized that it was not a soul essence, but a rare bloodline crystal. How could this drop from a bone demon's body? Yi Fei was puzzled. Seeing that Yi Fei was still in the mood to study the bloodline crystal, even though he was surrounded by so many bone demons, Lu Rian was shocked. Lu Xiaoyang almost vomited blood. It was really infuriating to compare oneself to others. Then he saw Yi Fei suddenly take out a black demonic sword and slash out a resplendent sword light in all directions. The dozen or so bone devils that rushed out had all fallen apart, leaving a pile of broken bones on the ground. A few more bloodline crystals rolled to the ground from the inside. So many bloodline crystals. Yi Fei was a bit confused. He had only seen the blood devil take bloodline crystals from Boundless Fa and the others. That was something that only a devilish god could do. Could it be that there was a devilish god hiding in the Black Penitentiary? Bloodline crystal again. Lu Xiaoyang ran over and clicked his tongue when he saw the bloodline crystals, but there was no greed in his eyes. Yi Fei shook his head slightly. A special bloodline was enough to change a martial artist's life. Casually killing a few bone demons would result in bloodline crystals dropping. He always felt that there was something wrong with this, so he didn't bother to pick up these crystals. He just continued walking deeper into Black Prison. Brother Yi, this is a bloodline crystal. It can awaken a special bloodline. Don't you want it? Lu Xiaoyang was slightly stunned. Ri and Lu's face suddenly turned pale. She stopped Lu Xiaoyang and said, "Don't move. There might be a problem with our awakened bloodlines. Follow Yi Fei closely." A problem? Don't tell me I cheated again. Lu Xiaoyang screamed. When I first discovered these bloodline crystals, I didn't even think before refining them. This cheater! Yi Fei's mouth twitched. He could only pretend that he didn't hear and continued walking deeper into Black Prison. Along the way, they were attacked by a few waves of bone demons. However, under the pseudo-emperor weapon-devouring soul sword, a group of ordinary bone demons died. Killing these bone demons didn't drop soul essences but bloodline crystals. The drop rate was also very high. At this moment, even if Lu Xiaoyang was thick-skinned, he also realized that there might be a problem with these bloodline crystals. His face started to turn pale. He cried and apologized to Ri and Lu. "Sister, it's my fault. I cheated you again. It's okay. If the owner of Black Prison wanted to harm people, we would have died long ago. This is only the second level of Black Prison. As we continue to go deeper, we will definitely find a way to resolve the problem in our bodies." Ri and Lu rubbed her temples with a headache. She was also speechless towards this younger brother of hers. Now, she could only try her best to be optimistic. Yi Fei also nodded slightly. He felt that Ri and Lu's analysis was reasonable. He also felt that these bloodline crystals didn't seem like they were harming people. They were more like bait, luring the martial artists deeper into Black Prison. An hour later, Yi Fei successfully killed the last wave of bone demons that attacked him. The entrance to the third level appeared in front of the three of them. It was a huge evil spirit iron gate. The evil spirit's mouth was the entrance to the iron gate. At the same time, there was a stone tablet at the entrance. Lu Xiaoyang looked at the stone tablet and almost cried. "Sister, there is indeed a problem with the bloodline that we refined. It says that the shadow bloodline is cursed. To remove the curse, we have to enter the third level of Black Prison, pass the assassin assessment, and become an assassin in Black Prison. Black prison, assassin? Interesting. Yifei was also a little surprised. This was actually an assessment place for an assassin organization. No wonder it was hidden in the marketplace. There were prison cells and torture devices inside. You should have thought of it earlier. Such a dark style was indeed very suitable for an assassin's identity. Yifei, what should we do? Rian Lu's pretty face had already turned pale. What else can we do? Continue forward. I will help you pass this assassin assessment. It should be able to solve the problem in your body, Yifei said indifferently. After all, Rian Lu and Lu Xiaoyang were old friends of the northern region. Just based on this point, he couldn't just leave them in the lurch. Yifei, thank you. Rian Lu's beautiful eyes were filled with tears. She understood that if it weren't for Yifei, she would have been screwed over by her precious younger brother. Lu Xiaoyang didn't say a word. He was depressed and blamed himself. He just silently followed the two of them into the third level of Black Prison. Welcome to the Assassin's world, future Shadow Warriors. On the third floor of the Black Dungeon, there was actually a huge ring. On the ring, there was a black figure shrouded in shadows. Seeing that figure, Lu Xiaoyang suddenly exploded. He suddenly turned into a terrifying shadow and rushed towards the black figure on the arena. Why did you scheme against us? Bang! Lu Xiaoyang's fist easily went through the black figure. The black figure was extremely illusory, as if it didn't exist at all. However, the fist he raised was extremely real. He directly punched Lu Xiaoyang and sent him flying out of the arena. Rian Lu said in shock, "Who is he? A real person or a ghost in the dark?" "Neither. If I'm not wrong, he's the forbidden spirit here," Yifei said in a deep voice as he walked over and caught Lu Xiaoyang. Chapter 1403. Assessment. There are 3 of you. Now, you can ask me 3 questions. Jinling said indifferently, as if he was used to warriors asking questions. Lu Xiaoyang immediately asked, "What is Black Prison? Why did you choose us to be assassins?" Black Prison is the name of our assassin organization. We are the most powerful assassin organization and also the most terrifying assassin organization. As long as you give us money, we dare to kill anyone. Martial emperors, martial gods, even heaven and earth supremes. There is no one that we dare not kill, Jinling said proudly, then stared coldly at Lu Xiaoyang. However, Black Prison did not choose you. It is you who chose Black Prison. Anyone who enters Black Prison only has 2 choices. Either die or pass the assessment and become an assassin of Black Prison. Also, this is the second question. The second question? Lu Xiaoyang was stunned. "Shut up, you cheater." Yifei and Lu Rian shared a common enemy and scolded Lu Xiaoyang together. It was such a good opportunity to ask questions, but this guy's mouth moved faster than his brain. He wasted 2 questions the moment he opened his mouth. It was the first time Lu Xiaoyang saw his sister so fierce. He immediately walked to the side, feeling wronged. Lu Rian calmed down and said to Yifei, "You ask." Yifei shook his head helplessly and finally asked, "How do we remove the hidden bloodline in our bodies?" "Very simple. Pass the assessment and you will get the other half of the bloodline crystal. Merge the 2 bloodline crystals at the same time, and you'll have the real complete bloodline, the Shadow Warrior bloodline that belongs only to you." Jinling's tone was still cold. Lu Xiaoyang and Lu Xiaoyang looked at each other. They finally understood that they did not get the complete bloodline. It was no wonder that Black Prison could get bloodline crystals from killing bone demons on the 2nd level of Black Prison. It was bait that Black Prison used to lure them in. No matter how many crystals were dropped, Black Prison would not lose anything. After all, the real complete bloodline could only be obtained by passing the assessment and becoming an assassin of Black Prison. "Yifei, we are sorry that we dragged you into this." Rian Lu blamed herself. They had brought Yifei here to look for treasures, but they had put Yifei in danger. "It's fine. I'm already prepared to be cheated when I'm with Lu Xiaoyang." Yifei was relatively calm. Lu Xiaoyang almost vomited blood when he heard this. "Brother Yi, Can't you be a little more tactful? Lu Xiaoyang felt really wronged. Yi Fei and Lu Ruyan rolled their eyes at the same time and ignored this guy. Ruyan Lu's voice was trembling. I don't know what the specific assessment of this assassin organization is. Could it be killing people? Yi Fei was also frowning. He shook his head and said, "If others don't offend me, I won't offend them. If this spirit restriction goes too far, then don't blame me for being ruthless. Brother Yi, could it be that you?" Lu Xiaoyang looked at Yi Fei in surprise, but this time he was smart enough not to say it out loud. "Follow behind me." He gave Lu Xiaoyang a look, telling him to protect Ruyan Lu. Yi Fei held the devouring soul sword and was the first to walk onto the arena. The other two followed. Future shadow warriors, prepare to welcome the baptism of slaughter. Ha ha! The spirit restriction laughed eerily. The area of the arena that the three of them were hiding in was getting bigger and bigger. In the distance, they could see mountains and forests. This was a terrifying forest. In the forest, killing intent was boiling. A blade of grass or a leaf danced in the whirlwind, and they all had amazing killing power. Poof! Poof! They stabbed Yi Fei's face and body, making the sound of metal colliding. A young man wearing a black purple-gold robe and holding a demonic sword walked out of the forest. Beside him stood a green-clothed woman and a red-clothed young man. Why are they looking like us? Lu Xiaoyang and Lu Ruyan were a little surprised. Interesting. You guys back off. I'll go up and fight them. Yi Fei's eyes were filled with fighting spirit. He had fought countless opponents. There were ordinary warriors and peerless geniuses. However, it was his first time fighting with himself. This aroused his fighting spirit. Kill! Without saying anything, Yi Fei walked up and waved the devouring soul sword. It formed a terrifying purple-gold sword light and slashed forward. Opposite him, Yi Fei also waved his demon sword at the same time. The whistling sword light turned into a torrential sword river and collided with Yi Fei's sword light. Then it was mercilessly engulfed. Boom! Boom! The sky suddenly turned dark. It was another huge Tai Chi sword diagram that appeared from the void. It brought with it unparalleled power and was about to suppress Yi Fei. He can still use my Tai Chi sword. Yi Fei was a little shocked. His sword technique could only be used when he mastered the power of despair. I didn't expect the Black Prison's restriction to be able to replicate this. It seems like this assassin organization is not simple. Yi Fei originally thought that the spirit restriction's introduction of the Black Prison was bragging. Now, it seemed like he had underestimated the power of the Black Prison. Dang! 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 Yi Fei waved the devouring soul sword and had already exchanged blows with the other three. As an assassin, it was impossible for him to fight one-on-one. Instead, he focused on killing with one blow. Just like now, the other two replicas did not attack Lu Xiaoyang and Lu Ruyan at the back. Instead, they suddenly joined forces and attacked the strongest one, Yi Fei, who was at the front. All kinds of martial arts radiance appeared from their bodies. That's my split shadow spear. Lu Xiaoyang suddenly exclaimed, "And my Lu family's secret technique, the secret sword of the willow leaf." Lu Ruyan widened her eyes in shock when she saw countless plants turning into sharp swords. It seems like the Black Prison's restriction can not only replicate realms, but it can also replicate our martial arts perfectly. Yi Fei's expression turned serious. The one who understood oneself the most would always be oneself. The one who was the hardest to surpass would always be oneself. Perhaps the test of the Black Prison was to test one's ability to surpass oneself. With such a thought in mind, Yi Fei realized that his martial arts had been perfectly replicated. Suddenly, a cold glint flashed in his eyes as he said in a deep voice, "This restriction can replicate my martial arts. I don't believe that it can replicate my domain as well." Tai Chi domain. Yi Fei slashed out with his sword. The sword light formed a blurry black and white world and collided with the Tai Chi sword diagram of the replicas. As he expected, the Black Prison's restriction was amazing, but it could not replicate a person 100%. It could only replicate Yi Fei's realm and martial arts, which was already the limit. When Yi Fei released the Tai Chi domain, even if it was the same martial arts, the power of his sword increased by more than 10 times. The Tai Chi sword diagram of the replicas was shattered. Then, along with the other 3 replicas, they were all suppressed and destroyed by the blurry black and white world. Chapter 1404. Slaughter, Sister. Do you think Yi Fei is a peerless genius? Lu Xiaoyang had a strange look on his face. I don't know, but Yi Fei was abandoned by the heavens in the North region and became the king sage of the North region. It's not surprising that he became a peerless genius in the middle ground. Lu Ruyin smiled bitterly. However, when she saw Yi Fei kill her clone without even blinking, her limpid eyes couldn't help but flash with a wisp of strangeness. Lu Xiaoyang shouted at Yi Fei awkwardly, "It's fine if you kill me, but can't you be gentler to my sister, Yi Fei?" Huh? Yi Fei looked at the beauty's head that rolled on the ground. He also felt that it was a little bloody. But this is the purpose of this assessment. It's not scary to be cruel to the enemy. It's scary to be cruel to yourself. This is the killer that Black Dungeon needs to cultivate. Yi Fei lowered his head and pondered. Hearing this, Lu Xiaoyang trembled. Lu Ruyin nodded slowly and looked at Yi Fei with a strange look in her eyes. Then, the scene in front of them gradually blurred. When they came back to their senses, they were standing at the edge of the arena again. In the middle of the arena stood the restriction elder. He looked at Yi Fei with surprise and said, "Very few people can see the purpose of this assessment. You're good, but to be a qualified killer, it's not enough to be cruel to yourself. The real assessment begins now." The scene in front of them changed again. They were no longer in the forest. They were outside the haunted house. The sun shone brightly in the sky. It was already daytime. Are we in illusion or reality? Lu Xiaoyang looked around. Yi Fei said angrily, "Do you want me to stab you and see if it hurts?" "Brother Yi, please be gentle." Lu Xiaoyang did not object. "Really? Really?" Poof! Without another word, Yi Fei stabbed Lu Xiaoyang with his sword. The latter squealed like a pig being slaughtered. "Brother Yi, you're not human. You're really stabbing me. It hurts. I can feel pain. Could it be that this is not an illusion? Have we really been teleported out of the black prison?" Ruyin Lu pinched her face. The slight pain told her that this was not an illusion, but reality. The 3 of them looked at each other. They didn't understand what this spirit restriction was up to. It was supposed to be a test, but why did it teleport them out of the black prison? Just as Yi Fei was at a loss, a scholarly old man walked out from the courtyard. He clasped his hands behind his back and coldly said, "Follow me." He brought the 3 of them out of the mansion and passed through many remote alleys. Finally, they stopped in front of a bustling market. "Kill everyone in this market in the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. The old, the young, the women, and the children, none of them were spared. If you succeed, you'll pass the test. If you fail, you'll die." After the old man finished speaking, he disappeared. Only an incense stick was left standing on the ground. Ruyin Lu and Lu Xiaoyang looked at the incense stick in horror. Then, they looked at the noisy crowd in the market. Their faces turned pale. Why? Why do we have to do this?" Ruyin Lu held her head in pain. Lu Xiaoyang kept retreating. His eyes were red as he shook his head desperately. Such a test was no longer as simple as being bloody. It was simply inhumane. Yi Fei's brows furrowed even tighter. For a moment, great anger appeared on his face. However, he quickly calmed down. "If I'm not wrong, this test is testing your humanity. The assassins of the Black Prison can't have emotions or humanity. What the Black Prison needs are not humans, but killing machines. Now you have 2 choices. 1, kill them and pass the test. 2, give up on killing. Within the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, the hidden danger in your blood will erupt and kill you," Yi Fei said coldly. His words made Lu Xiaoyang's face turn pale. Ruyin Lu's delicate body trembled slightly. But even so, they did not take action. Lu Xiaoyang clenched his fists tightly and blamed himself. "Sister, it's all my fault. I was blinded by the special bloodline. I even implicated you and caused you to die with me. Brother, it's not your fault. We can reopen our blinded minds. We can die, but we can't lose our humanity and our emotions. We're not killing machines of the Black Prison. We're humans. We have emotions. We know what's right and wrong. Ruyan Lu's face was pale, but she still forced a smile and comforted Lu Xiaoyang. Then, she looked at Yi Fei and said apologetically, Yi Fei, I'm sorry. We can't do it. We can't kill the innocent. I only have one request. Say it. Yi Fei said, bring our bodies back to the northern region. Bring them back to the Lu family. Ruyan Lu took a deep breath and said in a low voice. Yi Fei smiled and nodded. Then he shook his head. He wasn't wrong about this pair of siblings. They were old friends of his. This way, he wouldn't have wasted his efforts. Wait outside. It's best if you close your eyes. A murderous aura appeared on Yi Fei's body. Then, he walked into the bustling market with the soul-devouring sword in hand. Yi Fei, you're crazy. Lu Xiaoyang and Lu Ruyan Lu looked at Yi Fei in horror. They watched as he raised the soul-devouring sword and mercilessly killed one life after another in the market. The ground was covered in blood, and everywhere was filled with terrified screams, pleas for mercy, growls of adults, cries of children, and the sounds of people struggling before death. They suddenly felt that the figure wielding the demonic sword was so unfamiliar and so cruel. No, he's not Yi Fei. He's a demon. He's a demon from hell. Ruyan Lu closed her eyes in pain. Lu Xiaoyang clenched his fists so tightly that his hands were covered in blood. But they couldn't move or speak. While Yi Fei was killing, he was also imprisoning them. The time it took for a joss stick to burn passed quickly. The entire market was no longer bustling. There was also no sound. There were only corpses all over the ground and the blood-soaked youth holding the demonic sword. I've completed the mission. Yi Fei walked back to the two and released them from the imprisonment. Lu Ruyan Lu didn't speak. She only looked at Yi Fei with eyes full of fear. Lu Xiaoyang Lu didn't speak either. He only pounced at Yi Fei with bloodshot eyes. His fist was still dripping with blood. With a whistling sound, he punched Yi Fei in the face. If possible, the impulsive Lu Xiaoyang would definitely take Yi Fei down with him. But he didn't have such an opportunity. His fist actually passed through Yi Fei's body without causing any damage. The corpses on the ground also turned into smoke and disappeared. The market was no longer in front of the three of them. Instead, they appeared in the arena again. Lu Ruyan Lu's fearful eyes turned into a daze. Lu Xiaoyang Lu's angry expression also had a hint of confusion. Everything that happened just now was an illusion, Yi Fei explained calmly. Then he looked at Lu Xiaoyang Lu. Now, you can still hit me. I won't fight back. Bam. Chapter 1405. I refuse, Yi Fei, you bastard. Not only did Lu Xiaoyang punch Yi Fei, Lu Ruyan also punched Yi Fei's chest when she realized what was going on. However, her punches looked more like she was tickling Yi Fei. Lu Xiaoyang was stunned. Sister, I'm angry. Lu Ruyan realized that her actions were inappropriate. She blushed and turned around. She did not dare to look at Yi Fei, but she was relieved. Yi Fei shrugged helplessly as if he did not feel anything. He looked at Jinling on the stage and said indifferently, We have passed the test, right? Jinling praised. You are smart and good at analyzing. An assassin must not only be ruthless to himself, but also to his enemies. Be ruthless and merciless. Be an emotionless killing sword. This is your mission and also your glory. You have the potential to become the king of assassins. Jinling was very satisfied with Yi Fei's performance. He then looked at Lu Ruyan and Lu Xiaoyang with a cold gaze. And you too. You're too soft-hearted. You're not fit to be an assassin. You are not fit to step into the world of Dark Dungeon. Drag them down and put them to death. More than a dozen dark golden bone demons silently appeared on the arena. These bone demons were controlled, and they walked towards the two people with their skeleton-like bodies. Lu Ruyan's face turned pale. Lu Xiaoyang subconsciously stood in front of Lu Ruyan. It is my fault for entering dark dungeon. If you want to kill me, kill me. Whoever wants to hurt my sister will have to step over my dead body. Lu Xiaoyang, don't worry. No one will die today. Yi Fei raised his devourer sword again. A terrifying cold light flashed on his sword. The sword light flashed, and the bone demon fell. On the stage, there were bones of bone demons everywhere. Originally, Yi Fei wanted to take the opportunity to attack Jinling, but Jinling smiled coldly. His body turned from real to illusory. His sword light disappeared in the void. You disappoint me. You can kill yourself, but you can also kill all the innocent people in the market. Why do you want to protect them? Jinling's eyes flashed with a cold light. He had sensed killing intent from Yi Fei's sword. Yi Fei did not hide his killing intent. He raised his sword and pointed it at the forbidden spirit. A sword that kills can be emotionless, but it can never forget kindness. They saved me before. They are my benefactors. If you wanted to sincerely join Black Jail, you have to let them go. Also, you have to solve the problem of the bloodline in our bodies. As he spoke, he gave Lu Xiaoyang a cryptic look. Lu Xiaoyang immediately understood and shouted, "Brother Yi, you promised that you would help us pass the test. You can't go back on your words. Don't worry. Although this Ye's sword is heartless, I also know that there are two words in this world: loyalty and righteousness. Since I promised, I'll definitely do it." Yi Fei's expression was solemn. At this moment, he took a step forward. His expression was cold, but it was also filled with incomparable determination. He was gambling. An assassin could be heartless, but for any organization, the first thing would always be loyalty and righteousness. As long as he could grasp this point, he would be able to find out the method to solve the problem of their bloodline from the forbidden spirit. So that's how it is. You've received their kindness to step into Black Jail. You're right. An assassin can be heartless, but they must be righteous. Our Black Jail has existed since ancient times because of the word credibility. Boy, this old man admires you. Seeing that you have the potential to become the king of assassins, I can let them go. Jinling did not hide his admiration for Yi Fei. He waved his hand, and the arena in front of them disappeared. The three of them appeared in a dark palace. This is the Junior Assassin Palace, built with the bones of martial emperors. If you have the chance to become the king of assassins and receive the prison overlord summons, you can also see the intermediate palace built with the bones of martial emperors and the advanced palace built with the bones of martial emperors. From now on, you are my Black Jail's gold medal assassin, while the two of you can only be apprentice iron medal assassins. To be honest, if it weren't for the gold medal assassins pleading for you, you wouldn't even be qualified to enter Black Jail. Jinling's words revealed a trace of dissatisfaction. But no matter how dissatisfied he was, as Jinling, his duty was to train someone to become a qualified assassin after they passed the test. Therefore, Jinling waved his hand and grabbed two black badges from the void. He threw them to Lu Xiaoyang and Lu Xiaoyang. Then, a gold badge appeared in front of Yi Fei. Now, drip your blood into the badges. Then, you will officially become my Black Jail's assassins. Not only will you obtain the complete Dark Shadow bloodline, you will also obtain a martial emperor's secret technique. Join Black Jail and be loyal to the prison overlord. In the future, even peerless geniuses will tremble when they hear your names. Jinling's words carried a kind of temptation and excitement. But Lu Xiaoyang, who had suffered a loss before, did not dare to drip his blood on the badges again. Lu Ruyan also subconsciously looked at Yi Fei. Yi Fei unceremoniously threw the badges back and pretended to be dissatisfied. I don't want to listen to empty words. What I want is practical benefits, tangible benefits. Only with enough benefits can you obtain my loyalty. He deliberately revealed a greedy expression. Seeing the greed in Yi Fei's eyes, the anger that had just appeared in the spirit restrictions' eyes quickly disappeared. It only muttered in dissatisfaction. What a shady brat. However, Black Prison, need people like you. Here, this is what you need. Fuse with it, and you will obtain the complete Shadow bloodline. As for whether you can awaken the dark shadow bloodline or the dark shadow bloodline, it will depend on your luck. Jinling threw over 3 blood bottles that emitted strong blood chi fluctuations. He subconsciously thought that Yi Fei had also fused with the dark shadow bloodline. Yi Fei did not move. He only secretly activated the demon blood in his body to sense the 3 blood bottles. How is it? Lu Ruyin asked nervously. Is indeed a special bloodline. I don't feel anything wrong with it. Yi Fei nodded. He handed the blood bottles to Lu Ruyin and spread out his hands. Isn't there a martial monarch's unique skill? Why don't I see it? Cunning kid, the martial monarch's unique skill is in the badges. Drip your blood and explore your divine thought. Then you can practice the martial monarch's unique skill. Jinling's voice had a hint of devilish temptation. A powerful special bloodline, a martial monarch's unique skill, and a mysterious black jail. Even many disciples of the Saint Court would find it hard to resist such temptation. Hearing Jinling's voice and holding the blood bottles and badges in their hands, Lu Xiaoyang and Lu Ruyin's eyes gradually became conflicted. There seemed to be a voice in their hearts that kept urging them to drip their blood and quickly learn the skill hidden in the badges. But this time, Yi Fei did not even look at the badges. He suddenly raised his hand and threw them back again. I refuse. Chapter 1406. Killing a living being. Oh my God, my hand. Lu Xiaoyang, who had just regained consciousness, was horrified to find that his left index finger had been pierced by the light emitted by the badge. A drop of blood was slowly oozing out. If Yi Fei's sword had not shaken his mind, he would have unknowingly dripped his blood onto the badge. Lu Rian followed Yi Fei's example and hurriedly threw the badge far away, not daring to look at it again. They were, after all, absolute realm experts. Subconsciously, they could feel an inexplicable sense of danger from a badge. Blaspheming the badge is blaspheming the black hell. Do the 3 of you want to be executed? Jinling was enraged. A terrifying, murderous intent burst out from his eyes. Then, as if he had recalled something, he glared at Yi Fei with a cold glint in his eyes. Young man, don't go too far. I've already given you a special bloodline and told you how powerful the black hell is. If you join the black hell, you'll have eternal glory. Especially you, as long as you're willing to work hard. You'll be able to assassinate any peerless genius in the future. Martial monarchs and martial gods will tremble under the shadow of your assassination. Why did you reject it? Jinling could not understand. He had seen countless people and geniuses before and after his death. No matter who it was, they could not resist the temptation of the black hell. Those who passed the trial eventually fell into the darkness and became a member of the black hell. In particular, Yi Fei had fallen into the darkness of his own accord without him having to do anything. This made Jinling even more confused. Tell me the reason. From the way you killed those ordinary people, I could clearly feel that your heart is filled with darkness. Why can't you be tempted by the shadow badge? Lu Ruyin and Lu Xiaoyang were terrified. They finally realized that Jinling had given them the badge with ill intentions. He had even tampered with it. However, they were prejudiced by their first impressions. Jinling had given them a special bloodline and promised them a martial monarch's secret technique. Thus, they had subconsciously ignored the uniqueness of the badge in their hands. Yi Fei was the only one who had no intention of joining Black Jail from the beginning to the end. Be it a special bloodline or a martial emperor's secret skill, they were all dispensable to him at the moment. Of course, he would not be tempted by the spirit restriction. Yi Fei calmly shook his head and said, "You want to know the reason? Don't you think you're giving too many benefits? Special bloodlines and martial emperors lost techniques. What if someone pretends to join the Black Prison and escapes in order to obtain the treasures? Won't you suffer a great loss? Since Black Prison is so powerful, he can't be a fool. Then there's only one possibility. You're confident enough to control the assassins who join Black Prison. If it's not through a special bloodline, then it's very likely that it's through the token you gave us. After all, After an ordinary person checked that there was no problem with their special bloodline, they would form a habitual mindset and assume that there would be no problem with the medallion. Furthermore, there was the temptation of a martial emperor's secret technique and the demonic nature hidden in the medallion. Out of 10 cultivators, 9.5 would immediately choose to drip their blood on the medallion. When Lu Ruyan heard this, she could not help but blush with embarrassment. When she heard that she could obtain a martial emperor's secret technique, she also momentarily lost her mind and was instantly attacked by the demonic nature. Yi Fei, thank you, Lu Ruyan said sincerely. Fortunately, we invited Brother Yi this time. Otherwise, I would have been in deep trouble this time. Lu Chaoyang also had a lingering fear. Then, he asked curiously, by the way, Brother Yi, how did you discover that there was a problem with the medallion? I guessed. Yi Fei blinked his eyes. After all, he had fought with the blood demon for a while. He was very sensitive to things like demonic nature. After checking that there was no problem with the special bloodline, he immediately used the demonic blood in his body to sense the medallion. Indeed, he discovered problem. He also understood that the spirit restriction's promise was not good. After hearing Yi Fei's analysis, the spirit restriction did not get angry. Instead, he clapped his hands and laughed. Very good. It seems that this old man has been a spirit restriction for too long. It has been a long time since I spent time thinking, so much so that I forgot about the complexity of the human heart. However, I still admire you. Assassins need not only strength, but also wisdom. In the future, you have a great chance of becoming the king of assassins. Now, this old man represents Black Prison and solemnly invites you to join us. If you have any conditions, feel free to state them. Even if you have to break through to Martial Emperor, my Black Prison can do it. The spirit restriction threw out another huge temptation. Break through to Martial Emperor. This temptation made Lu Chaoyang and Lu Chaoyang's eyes widen. Yi Fei was also startled. If this spirit restriction was not lying, then an organization that could nurture a martial emperor was incomparably terrifying. In an instant, Yi Fei was also somewhat tempted. However, when he thought of the cruel assassin assessment of Black Prison, Yi Fei's expression became grave. He said in a deep voice, I want to know. The massacre in the market just now was not as simple as an assessment, right? It was because that illusion was too real. For this reason, he had even deliberately stabbed Lu Chaoyang with his sword. He had discovered that the illusion was terrifyingly real. Even now, when he thought of the people he had killed, his heart still felt heavy. The spirit restriction was stunned. He couldn't help but look deeply at Yi Fei. He said in a deep voice, this old man has seen countless geniuses who came to take the assessment. However, less than 100 of them were able to discover that there was something wrong with the illusion. In the end, a small portion of them became the king of assassins. That's right, it was not just an illusion. When you become an assassin, your first task is to go to the market in the illusion and kill everyone there. A qualified assassin must have their hands covered in blood, their own blood, the blood of their enemies, and the blood of innocent people. The spirit restriction's expression was sacred. This kind of sacredness made Yi Fei gasp. He then shook his head resolutely and said, then you should give up. I absolutely cannot accept such a task. Why don't you accept it? In the illusion, you've already killed once. That sort of feeling is the same as in reality. You'll still feel pain, you'll still bleed. Since you were able to kill them all without the slightest hesitation earlier, what's wrong with letting you kill them again? Restriction Spirit was completely confused. Yi Fei sneered. Of course there's a problem. Are you sure I really killed them? Hearing this, Lu Chaoyang and Lu Ruyan were stunned. Just now, in the illusion, they had seen Yi Fei enter the market and kill with their own eyes. Those screams, those begging for mercy, those painful wails, they still seemed to be echoing in their ears. They were 100% sure that Yi Fei had indeed killed those people. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to pass the assassin assessment. But at this time, Yi Fei's expression was so serious, so certain, and so full of confidence. Could it be? The spirit restriction's slightly cloudy eyes gradually became deep. At this moment, it was no longer as simple as a spirit restriction. The souls of the 72 generations of elders that had fused with it had completely awakened at this moment. The spirit restriction was no longer a mechanical test. It began to think and analyze. The scene in front of them also rapidly retreated. The spirit restriction brought them out of the assassin temple and back to the arena. From the arena, they entered the illusion once again. The Black Prison's restrictions were very powerful. Not only could it create illusions, it could also restore illusions. It could make the restored illusions seem like they were real and continue to evolve. The three of them once again arrived at the blood-soaked market. Here, countless wisps of green smoke gathered and turned back into corpses. They still maintained the appearance they had when Yifei killed them. Their faces were twisted and their expressions were pained. The kind Lu Ruyin couldn't bear to look at them. Even though she knew it was an illusion, she was still shocked and terrified. In the next moment, something even more terrifying happened. Those corpses suddenly moved. They moved their limbs in a daze and crawled up from the ground. "Ah, don't kill me." Suddenly, one of the peddlers woke up from the ground. When he saw Yifei, he seemed to remember the scene before Yifei killed him. He was so scared that he roared, got up, and quickly ran away. The sword wound on Yifei's chest that had been used to assassinate him had already disappeared. Chapter 1407. Unmelted Bones. What did you do to these people? Jinling refused to believe this fact. He rushed to a corpse that was crawling up and tore apart the person's clothes. The person was so frightened that he kept screaming, "Don't kill me. Let me go. Let me go." The person's survival instinct made him push Jinling away and run away. Jinling stared blankly at the person who ran away. He had already checked that person. That person was indeed seriously injured. His chest had suffered a fatal blow. That blow should have been enough to kill this person. However, not long after, that person actually came back to life. Only the healed wound and the bloodstains on his body proved that this person had been killed. This scene. Not only was Jinling stunned, Rian Lu's mouth was wide open in shock. Chaoyang Lu even rubbed his eyes a few times to confirm that all this was not an illusion, but a real-life reality. That's strange. They were clearly killed by Yifei. Why did they come back to life? Brother Yi, what did you do to them? Chaoyang Lu's question was also the same as the other three. They were all warriors. One of them was even Jinling. He controlled all the seals in the Black Dungeon. However, even Jinling could not understand how Yifei had done all this. Seeing those lively people, Yifei finally let out a long sigh of relief. His originally heavy mood also became relaxed. Although this was just an illusion, this illusion was very real, to the extent that it had reached the level of becoming real from a fake. In other words, there was not much difference between killing those ordinary people here and killing them in reality. However, if he did not kill them, he would not be able to pass the test. Rian Lu and Chaoyang Lu would also die because they could not pass the test. Therefore, Yifei came up with a very bold idea. That was to first kill the ordinary people in the market. However, when he killed them, Yifei secretly injected a trace of the undying power into each of their bodies. This way, on the surface, Yifei would ruthlessly kill everyone in the market. He would completely fall into darkness and become a demon. But in the dark, due to the existence of the power of immortality, it would transform into a life force not long after Yifei killed these people, reactivating their lives. Never would I have imagined that you would possess the ability to cause them to enter a state of suspended animation. You even managed to deceive me, the spirit restriction. Exactly who are you? Exactly what is your purpose in infiltrating the Black Prison? At that moment, the spirit restriction had completely awakened the 72nd generation elder soul. Yifei wasn't facing a mechanical spirit restriction, but a remnant soul that had existed for tens of thousands of years. However, he didn't cower in the face of this remnant soul. Instead, he stared coldly at the other party and said, "I'm just a passerby. I'm also a swordsman, but my sword can kill and bring people back to life." Restriction Spirit diabolically grinned and nodded. A bloody hurricane suddenly swept through the entire Black Prison. He angrily said, "I don't care who you are." After entering Black Prison, there are only two paths. Either become one of us, or be tortured to death. Which one do you choose? I don't choose either of the two paths. I'm more willing to take the third path. That is to destroy you and then walk out. Yifei's body also emitted a boiling, killing intent. When the spirit restriction created an illusion and forced him to kill in a market, he didn't have a good impression of the Black Prison Assassin organization in his heart. Compared to joining Black Prison, he was more interested in destroying Black Prison, destroying this ruthless and cruel assassin organization. Hearing this, the spirit restriction was completely enraged. He no longer tried to persuade him inside. "It seems that if I don't show you some strength, you won't know how powerful Black Prison is. I'm looking forward to the time when you kneel down and beg for mercy." Rumble. The sky above them suddenly darkened. It was so dark that one couldn't see their fingers. The only light in the world was dispelled. The illusion changed again. The three of them had already left the market and entered a pitch-black hell. They were surrounded by countless skeletons, and the screams of malicious ghosts could be heard everywhere. The torture instruments fell to the ground, stained with endless blood. Then there was the dragging of chains and terrifying roars. Suddenly, there was light in the dark hell. Taking a closer look, it wasn't light, but a purple claw. It stretched out from the darkness and dug at Yifei's head. Its fingers were as sharp as iron hooks that could tear through the void. Yifei subconsciously used the spirit-devouring sword to slash at the purple withered claw that was reaching over. However, what shocked him was that the spirit-devouring sword, which could even kill a bone demon, was unable to withstand the purple withered claw. The sharp blade was actually caught by the withered claw, and a few clear scratches appeared. The devouring spirit sword was almost destroyed by the withered claw on the spot. The devouring soul sword was a quasi-emperor weapon. Even martial emperor would have to put in a lot of effort to destroy it. However, the claw easily did it. Suddenly, there was a light in the dark space. Lu Ruyan took out a few dazzling luminous pearls from her space belt and lit up the dark space. Lu Xiaoyang followed suit and took out a few pearls as well. The surroundings became even brighter. However, the monster in the dark seemed to hate light. A purple bone demon rushed out from the darkness, roaring. Its 10 fingers were bent like hooks and shone with a layer of terrifying black light. There were countless iron chains wrapped around its body. Each of these iron chains was made of 10,000-year-old cold iron and could be used to refine emperor weapons. At this moment, thousands of iron chains stretched out from the void and wrapped around the purple bone demon. However, even with the heavy iron chains wrapped around its body, the bone demon's speed was faster than lightning. The moment it noticed the light, it had already locked onto Lu Xiaoyang and Lu Ruyan. 2 purple withered claws turned into 2 purple lightning bolts and grabbed at them. Yifei's expression immediately became serious. With a flash, he appeared in front of the purple bone devil. His fists shone like stars and carried a terrifying purple-gold light as they collided with the bone demon's withered claws. At this moment, he used the power of despair. The terrifying power allowed his fists to punch holes in the void. However, Yifei only felt a sharp pain in his fists when he collided with the withered claws. The fist radiance on his fists was shattered by the withered claws. His physical body that was comparable to an emperor weapon was unable to block the bone demon's withered claws. What is this thing? Yifei could not help but ask in shock. This is the eternal bone. It is a special demonic creature that evolved from the corpse of a martial emperor. It is even more terrifying than the bone demon. Its physical body is even close to the limit of an emperor weapon. Whoever wants to compete with it in terms of physical body is courting death. Chapter 1408. The Might of the Heavenly Technique. Not only must you kill your enemies, but you must also kill your friends and family. Only then can you be a qualified assassin, a perfect assassin. You must be cold, heartless, and cruel. Forbidden Spirit let out a strange laugh. His eyes were filled with madness and holiness. This was a crazy assassin. If he wasn't crazy, he wouldn't have turned his soul into a forbidden spirit. He would never be able to reincarnate. Yifei suddenly felt a chill down his spine. Lu Ruyan and Lu Chaoyang's faces turned pale. They had also made up their minds. Lu Ruyan transmitted her voice to Yifei. Yifei, if you really can't do it, you should escape by yourself. Don't worry about us. This time, we have implicated you. I will not leave. If I leave, I will take the treasures with me. Yifei's expression was filled with determination. His determination shocked Lu Chaoyang. It also made Lu Ruyan speechless. She was originally touched, but now a strange feeling appeared in her heart. When Forbidden Spirit heard this, he was enraged. As an elder of Black Prison, he had seen countless geniuses trembling in fear and begging for mercy in front of Black Prison. However, he had never seen someone as crazy and greedy as Yifei. Not only did he ignore the terror of Black Prison, he even wanted to rob Black Prison. This was the most serious and rude provocation to Black Prison. Kill. Forbidden Spirit was so angry that the wrinkles on his face started to tremble. As he waved his hand, the countless chains that bound the immortal bone suddenly disappeared. Roar! After being released, the immortal bone immediately exploded with power that was 10 times more terrifying than before. Its withered claws clawed forward, creating terrifying cracks in the void. Its body emitted a purple demonic light. The demonic light carried a strong corpse aura. It floated into the air and dyed the air into a poisonous purple mist. Yifei immediately held his breath and opened his purple gold Tai Chi. He slashed out a huge Tai Chi sword diagram in front of him, trying to stop the immortal bone from getting closer. In an instant, the purple mist turned into a purple corpse saber, bringing with it a surging corpse aura as it whizzed toward Nan. White Tiger Divine Sword. Yifei roared loudly like a furious white tiger. He brandished his claws, continuously clashing with the unmelting corpse blade. This left the restricted spirit greatly shocked. True Martial Sacred Academy still hasn't been wiped out? Great. Back then, I, Black Hell, assassinated Emperor Gajun Wu. Now it's your turn. What? Emperor Gajun Wu was killed by Black Prison? Yifei was shocked. Emperor Gajun Wu was a martial god, and Black Prison had assassinated a martial god. Even though he had a firm will, Yifei was momentarily stunned. It was also during this moment that the unmetamorphosed purple zombie blade suddenly exploded with corpse chi. 3 consecutive slashes shattered Yifei's White Tiger Divine Sword. A withered claw reached out from the corpse aura that filled the air and grabbed Yifei's throat mercilessly. Only then did Yifei react. His body shook and the white tiger disappeared. A ferocious vermilion bird rushed out and turned into a huge flaming sword, slashing forward. The restricted spirit shook his head coldly. It's useless. Even if you complete the 4 forms of true martial, you won't be able to defeat the unmetamorphosed skeleton. After all, this was a special bone demon formed by the corpse of martial emperor. Bam! The unmetamorphosed skeleton raised his purple zombie blade again and slashed 3 consecutive times, shattering the vermilion bird divine sword. The huge force also pushed him back a few steps, leaving a few deep footprints on the ground. Yifei, Lu Chaoyang, and Lu Ruyan were so nervous that their palms were covered in cold sweat. They wanted to go forward, but they were too weak. All of you stand behind me. Yifei could not let them go forward. Against the unmetamorphosed skeleton and absolute power, they would be courting death. Since the 4 forms of true martial won't work, I can only use that move. Yifei wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. His fighting spirit was boiling. He rushed forward again and threw out a terrifying punch. It's stupid to compete with physical strength. There was a mocking sneer on the forbidden spirit's face. He looked at Yi Fei, and there was a flash of disdain in the undying skeleton's eyes. Then, the unmetamorphosed skeleton dispersed the purple zombie blade. His entire body turned into a purple stream of light and crashed into Yi Fei. It wasn't hard to imagine that in such a physical collision, one side would definitely be smashed into smithereens due to the fact that their physical bodies were no match for the other. At the same time, Yi Fei's sprinting footsteps came to a sudden halt. Then, a roaring sky dragon rushed out from the void behind him. Heavenly Dragon Golden Body. Heavenly Dragon's 8 extremities. Boom! 7 golden dragons clustered around a red blood dragon that seemed to have broken free from hell. The blood dragon spat out blood droplets from its mouth. That was the blood demon domain, a blurry yet complete world. It whistled and smashed the undying bone that was pouncing on it, sending it flying. Kill! At this moment, Yi Fei suddenly took a step forward. Following his will, the 8 extreme heavenly dragons went berserk at this moment, forming 8 destructive light pillars in the shape of dragons that continuously bombarded the unmelted skeleton's body. Continuous explosions came from the unmetamorphosed skeleton's body. The unmetamorphosed skeleton let out a furious roar. A purple zombie blade appeared in its hand. Its withered claws tore through the void, and its bones, which were as tough as emperor weapons, rapidly grew a layer of purple bone armor to protect its body. But it was useless. Under the destructive dragon chi formed by the 8 extreme heavenly dragons, the purple zombie blade instantly crumbled. The unmetamorphosed skeleton's withered claws were also mercilessly swallowed by the light beams. In the end, the 8 light beams turned into 8 destructive beams of light. They whistled and pierced through the unmetamorphosed skeleton's body. The unmetamorphosed skeleton's sturdy body was completely shattered with a bang. On the ground, there was only a pile of purple bone fragments. The spirit restriction was dumbfounded as it stared blankly at the remains of the unmetamorphosed skeleton. Then, its voice trembled with fear. That's a complete immemorial heavenly art. That's right, it's an immemorial heavenly art. Yi Fei didn't plan to hide it. He couldn't hide it anyway. After all, the spirit restriction was too ancient. As an organization that could assassinate a martial god, the Black Prison definitely knew about the immemorial heavenly art. Good. I didn't expect you to have an immemorial heavenly art. No wonder you weren't tempted by the Black Prison. Unfortunately, even if you can kill the unmetamorphosed skeleton, you won't be able to kill me, the spirit restriction. I won't give you a chance to grow. I'll close this space and trap you in the Black Prison until you die. Fear, tremble, from now on, you'll be my prisoners. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.